Hey, spooky kids. Broadcasting from the crossroads of America in the heart of the great Midwest. This is Into the Night, and I am Jimmy Mitchell. Got an interesting story I wanted to read for you all tonight. Are ghosts real? A skeptical look by Professor Barry Markovsky. This is an article that he had written. In a 2021 poll, 41% of Americans said they believe in ghosts and 20% claim to have experienced them. Has potential over 50 million ghostly encounters in the U.S. alone. I don't know where they get those numbers. I mean, what are they measuring them against? I don't know. Take my local shop owner, for instance. He believes his store is haunted and showed me eerie security footage of mysterious orbs, strange voices, and even objects moving on their own. He even brought in ghost hunters who confirmed his suspicions. As a sociologist, Professor Barry Markovsky studies beliefs in ghosts, aliens, and superstitions. While he keeps an open mind, he reminds us that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. But are ghosts possible? People report seeing or hearing ghosts in various forms, but ghosts don't seem to age, eat, or perform other everyday activities, like pooping. If ghosts were made of some special energy, they would have to interact with matter, yet centuries of physics research have found no evidence of such an energy. What is the evidence? With more people recording supposed ghost encounters, you'd expect solid proof by now. However, most recordings are ambiguous, plagued by poor lighting or faulty equipment. Ghost hunting shows often present blurry images and emotional reactions as proof, but scientifically, these don't hold up. Ghost hunters use gadgets to capture sounds and other phenomena, but without understanding what they're measuring, these results are inconclusive. Often, what seems paranormal has a simple explanation, like a breeze moving a door, a light from the outside, or old wiring causing fluctuations. The alternative explanations, personal ghost experiences, can be misleading. Anecdotes are not a substitute for objective research. Alleged hauntings often have mundane explanations. Take the shop owner's videos. The orbs are likely dust particles illuminated by infrared lights. The strange sounds could be noise from the busy surroundings. The falling objects might be due to unstable shelves, and even the flying book could be recreated with a hidden string, showing a plausible non-ghost explanation. Many ghostly experiences happen under conditions that impair accurate perception: bad lighting, emotional arousal, sleep phenomena, and social influences. These factors can lead to unforgettable encounters, but they don't require ghosts to be real. Ghost stories are captivating and widespread, but they often lack the extraordinary evidence needed to support such claims. Science and critical thinking provide more plausible explanations for these experiences. So while the idea of ghosts is intriguing, the scientific evidence remains unconvincing. Speaking of critical thinking, tonight we have a truly remarkable guest who has spent over 2 decades shining a light on the mysteries of the paranormal with a healthy dose of skepticism and a keen eye for detail. Our guest has made it his mission to investigate and debunk paranormal claims, from ghost hunting gadgets and haunted houses to psychics and photographic evidence of the afterlife. Growing up in a Catholic household where spirituality was a given, his journey took a fascinating turn when he himself was mistaken for a ghost at a paranormal convention. This experience, among others, led him to question the methods and claims of paranormal investigations, ultimately steering him towards a scientifically minded approach. As the Chief Investigator for the Committee of Skeptical Inquiry, he's taken on everything from haunted houses to the latest ghost hunting gadgets, debunking false claims with a smile and a sharp wit. He hosts the weekly live stream show, The Skeptical Help Bar, co-hosts 3 Tortured Souls, and produces the vlog series Ghosts in the Machine. Beyond his skeptical endeavors, he's also an avid traveler and adventurer, co-hosting Explorers and Travelers with his partner Donna, where they explore the world and uncover the truth behind various mysteries. I ask everybody to grab your favorite drink, preferably a dark spiced rum, and welcome Kenny Biddle. How are we doing, Kenny?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, my friend.
That's good. Good.
Uh,
That was a great intro.
well, thank you for a great guest. I appreciate you being here. We have been waiting for you. A lot of people are excited to hear us talk. So I've got Avatar. Avatar is in the chat. We got Candy 7, Caroline Saxby, Entity 7 Paranormal, Joe Vitale, Faith Burris, Giselle, Kenny Biddle. Oh, you're in the chat. Marcia DV, Nat2 Haunted, Rob Linklater, Steph Cuervo Queen, Stormy Knight, Fur Alien. I'm seeing other people pop. Who else? Did I miss anybody? A Thai Ladyboy, Michael Burkeen, and I think that's it. Welcome everybody to the show. Kenny, I've been eager to pick your mind for the longest time, and I reached out to you initially because I've done a documentary, and in that documentary I can't seem to find my questions I had for you.
Obviously,
here we are.
Computer is haunted.
Yeah. I have these EVPs that I really stand behind them. EVPs to me are very mysterious, aren't they?
No.
Yeah. To me, I'm an audio guy. I've been doing audio. I'm a musician since I was 12. I started recording songs when I was 15, back when we were still using ADAT tape. And I know a lot about microphones. I know a lot about sound frequency and sound response and all that. And that's why I think, to me, EVPs are so fascinating. Now, I don't know if you got a chance to check out those EVPs. Perhaps later I can bring up some of them and ask you what you think about them.
Okay.
Firstly, though, I think what's interesting to me is that you used to be a paranormal investigator, and then is that true?
Well, I mean, it's interesting when people say that, and I'm not, this is in no way picking on you. It's interesting when people say that, because it's like, you used to be a paranormal investigator. What does that mean? Like, I'm still an investigator of paranormal claims. So honestly, that's a self-styled term. It's a self-styled title. No one earns that title.
Sure.
They give it to themselves.
Right.
So the title of Chief Investigator was given to me. That was the position that was open. That's what I applied for. That's what I was accepted for. So when I tell people, like, I'm the Chief Investigator, that's a title that was bestowed upon me, which is nice. But yeah, we get out into the community, and so many people call themselves paranormal investigators, and it's like, well, what did you do to earn that, other than just start telling people that that's what you are?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like saying, well, I'm a plumber, and not having to take any tests. And I mean, I'm not trying to be mean to anyone. So anyone that already calls themselves, because I'm sure a lot of people in the chat probably do call themselves that, but I figure it's more of a hobby, kind of ghost hunting kind of thing. So, but yeah, I don't think I used to call myself that. And to be honest, like, my view is, you have a ghost hunter, which sounds like a hobbyist. But then when you introduce yourself as a paranormal investigator, it sounds more sciencey. It sounds more like professional. So I did the same thing. I started calling myself that until I realized, well, I don't think I'm really an investigator. I'm trying to, but I really don't know what I'm doing. So that's why I started learning. So that was a very long answer. I don't think that was even a question. We're going to have a long show.
I love it. No, that's fine. You bring up a lot of good points, because it is very much a self-endowed title that people give to. That's one of the things when people will argue with me that I'm a paranormal investigator, and I say, no, I just investigate. I don't use the term paranormal investigator at all. I've only done a handful, if that, maybe 2 or 3 investigations, if you will. So I don't think that I'm on the tier as far as people like, I don't know, like Joe Vitale, for example, who I know is in the chat, or people like that who I tend to look up to. I tend to look up to these people.
Right. I like that.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's helped me out a lot. He's done a lot for me. And
but you know, he's okay.
Well, okay, so tell me about, you decided at some point you were like, okay, I don't know that I'm a paranormal investigator. I'm more of whatever it is you think you are. At what point did this happen from being this investigator to the more skeptical Kenny that everybody knows?
So basically, this is my origin story. So I for those that might not know, I am a big comic book nerd. So I love getting people's origin stories. I love telling my own. Basically, I grew up in a Catholic household. I was raised to believe so many mysterious things without proof. That was just the way I was brought up. So naturally, that slid right into ghost hunting, because it was like, all right, ghosts exist. Yeah, sure. I grew up with TV shows like In Search of, Unsolved Mysteries, stuff like that, and just glued to the television. And again, this is in a time when you had to be there at a certain day and time to see that program. There was no recording, there was no on demand, nothing like that. I
remember those days very fondly.
So I was hooked on that. I went to a Catholic school. We had like two books in the library that were on ghosts, and I read those every day because that's the only thing I was interested in. And then when I got married, I got out of high school, I got married, I finally had some adult money and decided I bought myself a computer and got onto this new thing at the time called the interwebs. And started looking around, found a group in the area that went ghost hunting. So I joined them and went out and pretty much took everything that they said for granted. I just accepted it. I didn't question it. I said, all right, you must know what you're doing because you have a group. You have a name. You have matching T-shirts. I mean, you must be professional. So therefore, okay, let's do this. And that just reinforced the beliefs that I already had. So going into it, I just learned more and expanded upon those beliefs. So not only were ghosts real, but now little balls of light that would appear in photographs were ghosts. Misty forms that would appear in photographs, they were ghosts. Scratchy noises on an audio recording, that was a ghost. And I accepted it. I didn't question it. I just said, that's it. And then got into the point where, and I think many people probably will experience this, or if you haven't already, you get this sense of authority. You get this sense like, I know what I'm talking about. I have all this knowledge and experience. I've been doing this for years, so I know what I'm talking about. And it's a false sense of authority, to be honest. And I had that. I totally had that. I did lectures. I taught people how to investigate. I went into people's homes. I told them that they had ghosts and it was haunted. And then I left. 4 hours later, 5 hours later, I went home and didn't think about what I did to that family.
Right.
We can talk about that in a little bit. But years went on. I found myself in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, at a one of the first ghost conferences, and this was like the late 90s, early 2000s. And I was there with a whole bunch of people, and it was more storytelling. There weren't a lot like today where you have paracelebs, because that wasn't a thing then.
Sure.
You had mostly authors of different ghost story books, regional books, that would come out and tell the stories and tell you where it was haunted and this and that. So enjoying it, getting to know people. One night we go out to the battlefield because we had talked to one of the Rangers, and they told us there was this special spot. You go there. The Rangers don't go there because they're all afraid. All these ideas that made it like that was the holy grail. That's where we wanted to go. And you also had this territorial issue back then. Ghost hunters were very, very territorial. This was their turf. Once they claimed the spot, they didn't want any other group going there. And that's kind of how I felt. You know, we got there, the secret spot. I want to discover this. I want to get the evidence. And here I am in the woods, in the dark, with a few other people. And I see car headlights coming down the road. And mind you, I'm in this little patch of woods, about maybe 10, 15 feet from the edge of the woods, which opens into a wide open field. And across that field, I see these cars coming down. And there's 3 of them. They pull over, they stop, people get out, and I see flashlights, I see laser pointers going all over, I hear them laughing, they're yelling, they're having a good time, and I'm getting annoyed because I'm like, we're trying to do our investigation, which is basically just us standing around waiting for something to happen. And I'm waiting for these people are coming over, they're being loud, and they start walking towards us. And now I'm getting more concerned. I'm like, shit, you know, they're going to find us. They're going to want to join us. They're going to want to hang out. And they're already loud. And I'm already annoyed. So by the time, I don't know exactly how close they were, but they were close enough that I could see their faces easily. I march out of the woods and I start yelling. I start yelling about get away, go home. This is our spot. You don't need to be here. I don't know what I said, but I know I was angry. They stop dead. They turn around, they run back to the cars, drive away. End of story. We have the rest of the night. Nobody bothers us. Next morning, we go into the conference hall and we start mingling, we start talking to people, and we hear stories about someone saw an apparition the night before. It's like, oh, great. We finally find the group, go up and talk to them. We're asking questions. They're like, oh, yeah, we were at the wheat field last night. I'm like, that's great. We were right there.
Right.
And they tell us what time, like 7 or 8 o'clock. And I was like, that's what time we were there. And I'm like, oh, they pulled over. They went up to the edge of the woods. And I was like, that's where I was. And then the light bulb finally went on. And I realized it was me. They were talking about me. And I gave them information. I started saying, hey, I think you might have seen me instead of a ghost. And they were like, no. It was a ghost. We know. We're ghost hunters. We know it was a ghost. I said, all right. Did you pull up in 3 cars? Yes. Were you wearing this? I described their clothing. I described what they were carrying. I even told them what they were talking about. And they still said, no, it wasn't you. And I'm like, but how else would I know this?
Right.
Like, I know this shit. And then finally, one of them, they all turned around to walk away. One turned back and said, stop trying to steal our spotlight. And when they said that, I realized, like, all right, they're not in it to actually figure out what's going on. They want attention. That's all they wanted. And to be honest, like, that's when I started looking in the mirror, the metaphorical mirror. I was looking at myself going, how many times did I do this?
Right.
How many times did I ignore information because I wanted to really believe? I wanted my belief to be true, no matter what. So that's when I got into the skeptical literature. I started reading a whole bunch of these books back here, all from skeptical writers or journalists, investigating these things, doing the historical research, following the scientific method or methodology, and learning what really happened in some of these big stories that we hear. And that's pretty much set me on the course of skepticism.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, I still hope I come across something, but I've learned so much along the way that I realize how much I don't know. And even today, like, there's still a lot to learn. So I'm constantly, never stop learning.
Right. Yeah, I like that you bring up they're worried about you taking their spotlight and all this. And I know a group and or at least a couple of people in the group, and these were people. One of them was somebody I was going to have in my documentary. I was going to have him speak on something that I felt was important, and I kind of got the vibe from him. It was like, maybe I don't know. It was one of those things where it's like, he seems he's nice, he's super nice, great guy, But then he starts talking about werewolves, and he starts hunting werewolves. And at that point, I realized I can't have this guy in my documentary. I can't. If I'm sorry, but I don't believe in werewolves. I don't believe in vampires. I do believe that ghosts could be real. Now, what a ghost is, I don't know. But when it comes to stuff like that, such fantastical stuff, I just can't get behind it. And all your credibility goes out the window. But these people are so adamant about it. And after they started talking about this, they started losing potential investigation places that they had already set up. They didn't want any part of these people. And it became evident to me that these people are only looking for attention, the acceptance of that title, paranormal investigator. They're looking to be recognized in public. And that is not, to me, a true paranormal investigator. You're looking for the truth. That's what you should be after.
Yes. If you have the heart of an investigator, then you are looking for the cause of whatever you're investigating. Like,
absolutely,
you're trying to get to the truth of the matter, regardless of whether that coincides with your belief or not.
Right.
That does not matter. I always say, leave your beliefs at the door. When you go out to investigate somewhere, leave your beliefs at home, because they have no place on an investigation. They really don't. Because it'll skew you. It'll skew your results. It'll bias your perception, and leave it there.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And just be, I think you're right. Like, so many people are in it for the attention, and the title, the idea, let's even go further. The ideal of paranormal investigator becomes part of their identity. It is not just something they do on the weekends. It becomes who they are. And I can relate. Like, this is who I am. This is investigating claims is who I am. I do it constantly, morning, noon, and night. Because I clock out of work does not mean I stop working. I still do this. And many of the things, like even now, I mean, this is part of my job. This is part of getting education out there, is to do interviews and live streams like this, which go well beyond like the 9 to 5 kind of thing, because this is my passion, and I get it. But understand that if you want to be called an investigator, if you want to be looked at and acknowledged as an investigator, then investigate.
Right.
Don't look for the spotlight. You know, when you go into a room or show up at an event, don't let the first thing you're doing is looking for the camera. You know, don't look for the camera. Don't look, what celebrity's here that I can go up to and schmooze with and try to say, you know, I know them. When you just, you're friends on Facebook doesn't mean you're actually friends. But I see a lot of that. And I'm sorry, I also talk a lot. I don't know if you know.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. I do want to thank real quick. I want to thank Rob Linklater. He gave me, he gifted 10 GhostQuest memberships, one to Giselle, Candy7, Wisdom, for Alien, Marsha DV, Wayne Dawson, Datsun 510. I really hate when my list just jumps out of nowhere. Earth Girl 55281, Faith Burris, John Paul. I can't pronounce his last name. I'm not going to try. I think that's it. Yeah, go ahead. I apologize. Go ahead.
That's okay. No, it's all right. I get it. I totally forgot where I was going anyway. Sometimes I talk so much that I get ahead of my brain.
We were talking about people looking for the spotlight, and well, so I guess in a way you've kind of explained, that you decided that you see these things and these mistakes that these people are making, and you've realized, I've made these mistakes. Holy cow. I am not what I've made myself out to be. And then there's this shattering to a degree of your paradigm. Yeah. How did that affect you? How did that?
It's made me angry, and I was what's the language policy?
Well, you can say whatever you want. You can say whatever you want.
So it made me a total asshole, to be honest. I was angry because recognizing the mistakes I was making and how it affected people's lives, I saw in the entire community, and therefore I felt justified, which I wasn't, to be angry at other people and pick a fight. And I did that several times. I didn't go in and just have a conversation. I was going in, pointing the finger and going, "You're doing it wrong. You're an asshole, this and that."
Wow.
I was acting like the asshole,
Right.
to be honest. And I mean, I guess it came from the idea that so many people, so many homeowners or business owners that I've talked to over the years, where I told them, "Yeah, your house is haunted." Why? Because some little cheap plastic gadget lit up, and I had no freaking clue how that device worked.
Oh.
I just knew from TV, which is not good education, but knew from TV, like, if that lights up, a certain amount of LEDs, then that means ghost. Didn't consider any other possibility, just ghost.
Right.
And that was completely wrong and irresponsible, and just I don't even know what the word. It was bad. It was just bad, because I was affecting people's lives. Because now I leave, like I said, after 4 or 5 hours, which is your typical ghost hunt, ghost hunters leave. And now this homeowner is there in their house, sometimes alone, sometimes with their kids. And they have this now reinforced belief that their place is haunted, that there are ghosts, and maybe evil ghosts, or dare I say, demons in their house, because ghost hunters that are looked at as an authority figure, especially when they come in with all the Pelican cases of equipment and their matching bowling shirts, when they come in like that, they look like an authority. So the homeowner's looking, going, all right, well, they know what they're doing. If they're going to come in and say this, then it must be true.
Right.
And how many sleepless nights did I cause? How much anxiety did I cause because I did that? And I still see that today. I see that with a lot of groups that go in and just have no idea what they're doing when it comes to the equipment that they're using, the interpretation, the science behind it, the lack of science behind a lot of the stuff, the assumptions that are made, the conclusions that are based on primarily beliefs rather than facts. And then giving someone a conclusion of you're haunted, or there's a demon, or you're possessed, and then walk away. And it's just horrible. It's the responsibility is just not there.
Right.
And so yeah, for me, that was really hard. It made me really angry for a brief time. I mean, luckily it wasn't too long. It was maybe a year, and then I started realizing, like, this is not the way to do it. I'm not getting through the people. I'm not making a difference. I'm making enemies. And that's not a way to go. Even if I don't like the person, if I don't agree with you or I don't like you, it doesn't mean I have to be mean to you.
Right.
So I turned that around and said, you know what? I'm going to try to have a conversation now. Instead, I'm going to stop being mean. I'm going to stop pointing fingers. I'm going to stop yelling at people, because that's just good advice in general, I think. And just have a conversation and talk and find out why they believe. And then all that started to make me realize, okay, I was there. I was in their shoes. I was right where they are. I have that experience. I know where they're coming from. Let's be nice about this. Let's talk about it. And maybe I can impart some information that will maybe change their point of view if they want it. If they don't want it, so be it. Yeah. I'm not going to force it on them, because that's a problem. I don't like forcing beliefs on people. Even though I don't think I have beliefs, that's another topic. I don't maintain any beliefs. I have ideas, but I don't want to force my own ideas on the people. If they're willing to listen, we'll talk. And maybe it'll make a difference. Maybe it won't, but maybe it'll plant the seed and they'll want to come back later and talk. And, we can have a conversation about it. So,
yeah, it's awfully helpful that you became self-aware, and realized, you're projecting all this negativity. And what you were doing essentially was you were yelling at these people, but you weren't. You were yelling at yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was
And
angry at myself. Yeah.
yeah. And that I'm sure once that occurred to you, a whole weight lifted to a degree. I mean, sure, there's still the idea of like, well, I am responsible for these sleepless nights or this stuff, this rustling of the feathers of these people to a degree, for lack of a better term right now, because I'm thinking too much. But yeah, I think becoming self-aware and realizing, hey, this isn't the way to go, and then dropping that allowed you for a clear mind to do exactly what it is that you want to do, which is spread the truth. Yeah. I have to thank Rob Linklater again for another 10 gifted GhostQuest memberships, going to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, Foxfire, Steve Reese, Dawn of the Dead, Dawn Marie, a Thai Ladyboy, Sammy, Anita Drake, Jethro, Grey Wolf, Roni Simon. You have all been gifted memberships by Rob, you absolute legend. You now have access to a couple, there's I think 3 members only videos. You also have wonderful emojis in the chat. And again, I want to thank Rob Linklater for being so generous to me. Very, very awesome. Very wonderful mod. I got to thank my mods, Rob and Candy, both wonderful people. So you grew up in a Catholic household.
I did.
And I didn't grow up Catholic, but I grew up, we believe in God, and Christian, we'll call it Christian. I spent a lot of time in Christian and Baptist church, where I find, this is just my perception, spirituality doesn't seem to reside too much in the churches. It's more about people, the people that you come across in your life, but spirituality was a given in a Catholic household. How did that influence your initial interest in the paranormal?
I think because it taught me, well, I don't know if it actually taught is the right word. Because it's instilled in you. It's you're born with that idea. Because I can't remember when it was taught to me. It was just always there that there is an afterlife, that people die, they go to heaven, they go to hell, or purgatory. There was a third option. So door number 3. And it was interesting. And then you go to religious studies and you are told that ghosts don't exist, that you either go to these 3 places or that's it. There's nobody stays behind. But then you read about ghosts in the Bible. And there are some passages that reference a ghost coming back or being risen, being brought back to get information from them. So the contradictions were there, but I ignored them because I was a good Catholic. You ignore the contradictions and you just believe. You believe what you're told to believe. So that laid the groundwork for believing that there's an afterlife. And it was just a little nudge to the side to think, all right, well, maybe some people do come back. And then we have demonic possession, or demonic entities that are talked about in religion. It's talked about in Catholicism. And you don't hear about it much except when the topic of exorcisms comes up, and then that is even hush hush. And then that was also played a part because my mother had told me that my great aunt was a military nurse. And I remember Aunt Margaret, tough as nails. I mean, she didn't take no shit from anyone. But apparently, while she was working at one of the hospitals, one of the military hospitals, there was allegedly a patient that was possessed and that tossed around people like they were nothing, like they were rag dolls. And the only story that I got was secondhand from my mother, and that was about how they brought in players from the local football team, the local high school football team or the local college, I don't know which one, because they had to hold this old woman down. And apparently that was it. It was an old woman who was like skin and bones, but she was tossing people around. And that always fascinated me. And every time I've asked, I would ask my aunt about this story, she would not tell me. So I don't know if it actually happened or not, if it was something that was like a family story that wasn't really true, or maybe it did, or maybe there was something else going on. But I never got the chance to get the story from my aunt because she passed away when I was young, so never got it. So even that kind of reinforced the idea that this is true, because again, my military nurse aunt, who didn't take shit from anyone, apparently had this spooky story. And to me, like a little 6, 7, 8-year-old, that was like, holy crap, like that must be real if she's saying it's real.
Right.
But the truth be told, she never actually said it was real. So that was an assumption on my part. And just growing up and talking about spirits, and it all led to that idea, and the idea grew more because I also had a very active imagination. I grew up playing D&D. I don't know anyone else watching. I played D&D from a young age, and it was one of the few games that I was allowed to play, which I shouldn't have been allowed to play because some of the themes in it.
Yeah, that's interesting coming from a Catholic family that they allowed that, because I remember the scare during that time. I mean, I imagine we're probably close in age to a degree. In the 80s, I remember the news about people in the sewers killing each other and on this game, Yeah, that's interesting. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interject.
Sorry. I mean, that's basically it. I mean, it just the imagination, the belief system that I grew up in, and then the story from my aunt that I didn't hear firsthand, right. All contributed to this idea that there was something and ghosts were real. And then plus, again, like going back to the time growing up watching TV shows like In Search of and Unsolved Mysteries,
right.
And all of these weird documentaries that would come out once in a while. Especially, I think, like Unsolved Mysteries would once in a while have like a documentary style special that was like 2 hours long, and it would feature like 2 or 3 ghost stories or monster stories or UFO abductions and stuff like that. And being able to watch those unfiltered, because most of the time it was just me. Like my mother didn't watch them, my father didn't watch them, I watched them, and they had given me I had a little 13-inch black and white television in my bedroom, and I would sit there and watch that all the time, and that would just get the wheels turning, the imagination turning, and before you know it, ghosts are real, Loch Ness Monster was real, aliens were abducting people and doing butt stuff, all of this was real, and I bought into it.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I like the story too about your aunt, because for me, when I was a child, I remember my mother and my uncle. Now, they grew up in a blue-collar farm town. They were farming people. My mother would milk the cows. My uncle would work in the fields with my grandfather. And they would tell me stories about the house that they lived in. And witnessing some things, like hearing people walk through the house but not seeing anyone there. I have a story like that myself. And my uncle telling me about waking up one night and looking out his window, and there was an apparition looking back at him. And this window was upstairs. There was no balcony for this thing to be standing on. But, these are people that I love, and people that are telling me these stories. And I went to school and told some of my teachers and my peers, and they made fun of me. And I think that's kind of where my drive to find the truth comes from, because I know ultimately they were saying that my mother and uncle were liars, and I know better than that. So there is this deep passion, I think, that hit me young to find out what the truth really is. I do want to thank Cynthia Bossy for the $5. Thank you very much. Awesome live. I love listening to you guys when I'm driving, and voice to text is great when I remember to enunciate. And also, thank you, Creepy Decibels, for the subscription. I gotta stop saying
I do it all the time, because when you're thinking, when you're trying to plan it out, it just comes out naturally, especially when you're in charge. I'm not in charge. This is nice relief, because I'm used to being the host, and now I don't have to worry about it. I can just wait and see
Right.
what happens.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, it is. That's and I do love when you are in charge. I love.
Oh, hey now.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh, please tell me Crow isn't in the chat.
He's here.
Please tell me Crow Judas ain't here.
He's here. He's here.
He's gonna take that.
Your first investigation experience. That's 1997. Am I right?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me about it?
1997. Is that what it was? Wow. My first investigation. Where was I? You stumped me on this. Where was I? 97. That's when I got married. Got a computer. Went out. One of the first ones was I went to Forest Hill Cemetery. Also went to Fort Mifflin. Do you have one in particular that you're looking for?
Just your first on-site investigation.
First
that you can remember.
I think that was Forest Hill Cemetery.
Okay.
It's going back. That's
Yeah.
when I joined a ghost hunting team. It was a cemetery, and of course, like the idea was cemeteries were haunted. I don't know why, because people are already dead before they get there. So
Right.
I don't know why they're haunting it. I don't need a body anymore. I'm done with it. So we went there, and I do remember just walking through the dark, and it was peaceful. It was also spooky, because you're walking around thinking there's like hundreds and hundreds of dead people around me.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of interesting. And I remember going through the path, and it was very hard to see what was going on, like, because it's a lot of open fields, but trees there, headstones there, and once in a while you pick a shadow out and you think, is that a shadow,
right,
caused by some kind of light? Is that a person that's walking through? Because it was inside a residential area too, so people would walk their dogs or just take walks through it. So I never could tell, but seeing some dark figures walk among the tombstones, like, that gave me that boost.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, and I did the classic thing that I complain about now. I didn't actually investigate. I saw it from afar,
right,
like across the field. I saw a dark figure walk from like one tree through a couple of headstones, and then disappear into a couple other trees. And I never went over to investigate, but that became a story.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that I would report back and say, yeah, look, I think I saw something. I think I saw it was over there. It went from here to here, but I never went over. And if I would have run over, which I did later, you would find out that there's a path there that comes up closer to me, banks around, and then goes down a hill. So someone could walk up there, look like they appear out of nowhere, stay there for a few moments, and then by the other side, they're walking out of view and disappear.
Yeah.
So if I would have known that back then, if I would have taken the time to investigate, I would have figured that out, but I didn't. And that helped reinforce those beliefs again. To me, that place was haunted. And I put out on a website, like my group had a website, and I posted a story like, I think this is a ghost. And I don't even think I said it that way. I said, this is a ghost.
Right,
I saw a ghost, and I was convinced. And now that story was out there. It's no longer out there, thank goodness. But that was out there for other ghost hunters to read, and they could look at that and say, oh, well, this cemetery is haunted, and they are going to go there, and they're going to get something like that, because so many people just didn't investigate. They just observed. And that was a problem. So I think that was my first one. Forest Hill Cemetery, I think, because it all kind of mingled together.
Sure.
We did do the Betsy Ross house in Philadelphia, because I was living in Philadelphia at the time. We did that, and that was kind of boring. The only good part was that they opened the display areas. So there were like sections of room that were behind plexiglass, and they opened it up so we could go in, which was nice. Because any kid that grew up in Philadelphia, like, you took a school trip to the Betsy Ross house.
Right.
That and the Liberty Bell, you always did that. But you could never go behind the glass. This time I was. So it was cool. I also went to Fort Mifflin. That's a cool fort. It's on the Delaware River, right by the Philadelphia airport. It still does ghost tours today. And we were there. I was with the group, and nobody, as far as I know, and this is typical ghost hunter thing, we were the first ghost hunting team that went in there and it was able to quote unquote investigate the site. But again, we sat around a lot. Our ghost hunts were not investigations. They were stakeouts. And that's a distinction I make a lot, where most groups do not investigate. They stake out. They stake out a location. They sit there, and they're basically like the cop movie, your FBI movie, where the agents are in the apartment across the street from the Italian restaurant that's a front for the mob. And they're set up with cameras and video cameras and microphones, and they're watching from across the street, waiting for something to happen. That's what I see a lot of ghost hunting teams do. Yeah. And that's what we did. So
Twisted Puppet is upset that there's no ice cream eating going on, because the thumbnail promised ice cream eating.
I did not pick that.
No, you did not.
Surprised as you were when you guys saw that.
I was looking for the perfect picture, and I saw that one, and I debated for a minute, and I was like, no, this is the one I'm using. This is the one I'm using.
It's all good.
So I want to go back to when the people mistook you for a ghost. Now, you were with people, too, on your team. Is that accurate? Okay. Yeah. How did they respond when you... I mean, because you went and told these people, hey, the other team, that wasn't a ghost, it was me. Your teammates, the people that are in your team, obviously they're aware of this, and they saw this whole interaction. How did they respond to that other team treating you the way they did?
They thought it was funny.
Okay.
They really thought it was funny. They made fun of me, and... in a friendly way. They were making fun of me and laughing like, "Oh, look, you were a ghost. You're going to be famous." And that was it. It was laughed off, and it was like, "You're going to be famous. They're going to tell that story, over and over. It's going to be part of a ghost tour. It's going to happen like that, and you're going to be immortalized forever." And I was like, "I don't want to be immortalized like this.
Right.
No, because this is embarrassing to me.
Sure.
That like." I was part of this story. I no longer find it embarrassing. I find it educational now. So I can tell that story and teach a lesson with it. So, but at the time, yeah, I was kind of embarrassed about it, and that, like, you do something that's embarrassing, your friends are obligated to make fun of you.
Absolutely.
For quite some time. And therefore they did. they did. And my wife, even when we bring that up and somebody asks about it and I retell that story, like, she laughs at me. She thinks it's funny because she was there with us. And there when we were talking to the group. So, like, I hadn't met up with my friends the next morning. It was me and my wife down there and talking to them, and then this all went down, and then later on everyone else showed up and mocked me. So it was fun. It was good. Learning experience.
Right. Well, so you're a photographer, and what role do you feel like your photography and optical, or your expertise in photography and optical phenomena play in your shift towards skepticism?
That helped because I didn't do it before. I was a ghost hunter, and that kind of led into photography because I was doing more with pictures. I had used 35 millimeter and 110 film, and then the Sony Mavica was introduced, and that was a big deal. It was also very expensive, so I couldn't afford one. But it was interesting, the people that did afford it and brought it, I got to see it, and I mean the pictures were crap. They're still crap, but it was something different, and it made me curious, especially when you're talking about the smaller compact 35 millimeter like pocket cameras. And I noticed that we were getting orb pictures. I hate orbs. They are the bane of my existence, but we were getting a lot of those, and it made me curious, like, why are we getting these, but I don't see them in other pictures that use bigger cameras, like more professional cameras? And it kind of, after playing with it and experimenting, I found that it was the relationship of the flash to the lens. So you have your basic 35 millimeter camera that was about like that big, and the flash was only about an inch from the lens. instead of the big professional SLR cameras that had the flash on top, mounted on top, and you had like a good 6, 7, 8 inches away, and it had a different effect. So the light was illuminating an area, but not right in front of the lens, and that played a big part in it. So that's a quick kind of detailed story to let you know that it sparked my interest. I wanted to learn how cameras operated, how they worked, how the lens worked, how the film, how the digital sensor worked, how the lens interacted with the light and produced this image. So I started reading some more. I started getting some more cameras. I got into it. You can see like this whole shelf of books, These are all photography manuals, except for the recently deceased manual from Beetlejuice. But all those are photography manuals that I bought, read through, practiced, and then started collecting cameras in order to understand all the functions. And then I got into photography. I got into doing family portraits, regular portraits, just business portraits, weddings, product photography. And that let me know or started introducing me to special effects, not just filters and like in-camera filters, but practical effects that I could set up and make things look like they were in the shot, but they really weren't in the shot. And it was fun. It really sparked an interest, which has grown. And now, I mean, I own probably like 400 to 500 cameras now, vintage cameras from like 1900 all the way up to present day. I've played with all of them. I've played with the functions. I've shot most of them, not all of them, because some of them you just can't get film. Sure. Or I've at least tried. I've gotten expired film and at least gone through the motions, so I understand it. And it helps with understanding early photography, because there's so many early photographs that we have. Not just, I mean, we're talking like glass plate and tin types, and going through there, seeing the process, seeing what you could mess around with. And I mean, understanding the first spirit photographs from Mulma, like when he did spirit photography, and learning how that came about, and understanding like, all right, these are double exposures or long exposures. And learning these techniques really play a part, because now not only can I recreate a lot of these anomalies that people get, but I can break it down. I can teach you how to do it. I can recognize them sometimes, most of the time, right away. Like I look at a photo and it instantly like, all right, I think that's this technique. Right. And these are also techniques that people do by mistake.
Sure.
You don't have to deliberately set up a hoax. You don't have to set out to try to fool someone. You can do a lot of these techniques by mistake and walk away with a result that's like, holy shit, what the hell happened here? How did I get this photo? Yeah. And I think that's the majority of the people that I engage with, is they took a picture, they didn't realize what settings they had, or they were trying to do something where they thought it would benefit what they were doing, like turning the flash off. Too many people turn the flash off during a ghost hunt because they don't want to annoy other people or distract other people. And I think that's the worst thing you can do, because now you're going to get a shitty picture, and it's going to have something weird in it, and you're not going to know what it is.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the long story of just my introduction into photography. And I mean, I did it for years, where I was doing a lot of freelance work, and that helped a lot too. That gave me a lot of experience shooting in different lighting conditions, understanding how to get the best view or composition out of a product or a person when they're posing, and then the different settings on the camera, and just learning the effects that are in camera, and learning the effects that older cameras can do, that you're like, oh shit, I didn't even realize this could do that. So lots there.
Yeah, I do want to ask you about something when it comes to camera stuff here in just a second, but I have to again. Rob Linklater is at it again with another 10 gifted memberships. Twisted Puppet, James, Roni, Amanda Huff, Pan C Paranormal, Richard Lemon, Pipa, and of course my thing just jumps. Where are you, Pipa? Just Jane, The Only Way is Crazy Media, and Jay Smith all now have memberships. And I appreciate you, Rob, very much. You're way too kind.
He is a nice guy.
He certainly is. He certainly is. There. Yeah. Well, why Rob Link now when you can Rob Link later?
Wow, that was a good inside joke there.
There was, I don't know if you remember this or not, but there was an episode, I believe, of Unsolved Mysteries where these people were in this house taking photographs, and in the photographs were words. Now they would take brand new film. They would show you they would take that film, put it in the camera, and take pictures. And these ghostly words were being presented. Do you know this story? Have you heard of this?
I do. I believe I know what episode and what situation you're talking about.
Can you tell me how they did that? Do you know how they did that?
They almost certainly faked it.
Sure.
And they were using Polaroid cameras.
Okay.
So they were, the way the Polaroid camera works, basically, if you know what, give me a moment.
Sure.
I'll demonstrate.
We're going to give him a moment, and he's going to demonstrate something awesome, because this is something that has always baffled me. How could they do this? And if you haven't seen this or yourself, it's definitely worth looking at, because it's one of the most amazing, and I've always felt it was a hoax. So having somebody who knows cameras the way Kenny does, I have to take this opportunity to ask him. We've got Paranormal Monkey Podcast. Hey, you're the man with the beautiful voice. Central Mass Paranormal Society. I'm sure you have a beautiful voice too. I just haven't heard it yet.
So basically, when they're taking a picture with the Polaroid, and for anyone that's familiar with this kind of camera, I mean, this was one of the most popular cameras in like the 80s and 90s. Mm-hmm. You basically point, you push the button, and it spits out a film.
Right.
So this has a full cartridge, I think, in it. Maybe not. No, it doesn't. All right, so basically you've got the cartridge. This spit out a film. What is it? Sheet, film sheet, right, basically, and everything was in there to develop that image. Right. So it's not like 35 millimeter film where you had that roll of film and a film stock where it went back into the cartridge. You sent that out. You dropped it off to your drugstore. They sent it out. They processed it, developed it, and they sent you back the negatives and prints from it. Everything was contained in this cartridge. So once you put it in here, loaded this up, put it in, closed it, it would spit out the dark card, which protected the film inside. But when it spit out the next picture, when you push the button, you had that white bottom. So the bottom of the picture had a thicker white banner.
Right.
Within that were chemicals. There was
right.
a chemical pack in it and several chemicals. And inside here, inside right there, there's rollers. There's steel rollers, which I think, can you see? Oh, there's one there. So this roller, and there's another roller up top where it would squeeze that pack, burst it, and as the film was ejected, it spread those chemicals along the entire image, and that was developing it. That was your developer. So it would make this image, and you had to put that photograph upside down so the light wouldn't hit it, and you waited. You had to wait like 1, 2, 3 minutes.
Right.
You were not supposed to shake it, even though all of us did.
Yeah.
Because that was bad.
Yeah.
That would actually use centrifugal force to make the chemicals go out further, and it might distort your image. But basically, that's the process. So during developing, as soon as that comes out, if I take that image, and I'm like, I thought I had some images, but I think they're all down the other end. I have another collection at the other end of the building. As soon as that came out, you basically had it come out like this. Comes out, you take it, you turn it upside down, and now if you have a little sharp point on your thumbnail, you hold it like this, and you basically carve in a message. And this is a magician's trick. This is a very simple magician's trick. We see it all the time with like slate writing and stuff like that, where they engrave an image. You're basically engraving an image onto that film. And because it's still developing, and that imprint is that's why you weren't supposed to touch it either. I mean, you had specific instructions not to touch that area. But when you're doing that, you're carving a message in there. And that's if somebody's looking. Like, we're talking right now, it's on camera, and I'm moving my thumb all around, and you really can't see it too much.
Right, that's right.
As we're talking, unless you look directly at it. But if no one's looking, then I can just easily, scrape something onto it and wait for it to develop, and there it is.
Yeah.
I scratch it in there, I put this down on a table, and then leave it alone and say, all right, give it another minute or so. Someone else comes over, picks it up. Oh my God, there's writing.
Right.
And perfect plan. So yeah, I remember those well, and I remember seeing those. Actually, that's good. You reminded me, because I want to recreate those.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
So I'm gonna write this down, because I have to remember to do this.
That was just one of those that, like, I always had that inkling. It's like, this has to be a hoax. This can't be real. But how are they doing it? And of course, you can only see what you're being shown by the program. They're
right,
not, know. So that was just one of those things that I figured if anybody would know, you would be the guy.
Yeah. It's a good magic trick. It takes some skill to learn some of that stuff, but it's a basic. I mean, that stuff, once I said it to some magicians that I know, like, they were like, yeah, we do that all the time.
Okay.
That's a typical trick.
Okay. Can you tell me more about the Anomalies Research Society?
Anomalies Research Society? Oh my God, where'd you pull that shit out? Look at you stalker.
Well,
so
I try to be a good interviewer, my friend, and sometimes I have to dig.
So that's something I did with Sharon Hill. She did Doubtful News for a while, the website, and it became a podcast for a while. She does Spooky Geology now. I think there's a website called Spooky Geology, and it's really good. Sharon Hill is she has a degree in education in the public. She's also a geologist, and super awesome, really smart. And I've known her for years, and we crossed paths several times in the work that we were doing. So she was doing a lot of work when stories would come up in the news about weird things, either like cryptids that were found, or UFO sightings, or strange anomalies that would happen in the atmosphere, and just like weird things, like booms, like the mysterious booms that people report once in a while. She would look into those and write up something like right away. That's what she did. And then once in a while we crossed, because I would look into it as well, or I'd come across something and pass on information to her. She would pass on information to me. And one of our ventures was just like, hey, let's start this thing. And it was an idea to see if we could get interest by calling it the Anomalies Research Association, right? Anomalies. What did I call it?
Anomalies Research Society.
Yeah, it's been so long that we were hoping that it would be viewed. Oh my! I don't want to say bait and switch, but it was kind of like that, to get people to look at it and say, like, oh, they're looking into anomalies. Maybe they're like more of a paranormal site. And then we hit you with the Steins.
Right.
So I had a couple articles on there. She had a couple articles on there where it was just going into different claims and then explaining them. And I wrote something about, I think that's where did I post a K2 meter? I forget what I posted on there, but a couple articles that dealt with explaining anomalies or gadgets. And unfortunately it didn't work. We did a few things. We were members of like several groups on Facebook and Twitter, and we're trying to get information out there, but it just never took off. And we were also just too busy with our own projects to devote much time to it. So it was something that was fleeting. It was fun. And it looked really good on a banner to put up, just another thing on the banner that we could try to promote and just get people to look at these weird anomalies from a different perspective.
Right.
But yeah, it didn't last long, sadly. But I love Sharon. I mean, I think she's great. She's been on my show once, but she's really busy. I don't think she likes doing live streams, especially ones that like this. Podcasts are fun for her, but I don't think she likes doing live streams. I don't know, but yeah, we still talk. We still trade information once in a while. But she put out a book called Scientifical Americans, and it was about amateur research groups into paranormal claims, the bulk of which were ghost hunters, but she also had some cryptid groups and UFO kind of groups in there, talking about these amateur groups and how they view the paranormal, how they approach it, how the methodology they use, and how it compares to more of a scientific minded approach. And I did all the photography for that. So all the pictures that are in that book, I did the photography for that, which included like examples of UFOs, which was fun. It was fun trying to create believable UFO photos.
Right.
So that was fun because I'm used to doing ghosts and monsters. I was like, oh, I haven't done UFOs. All right, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah,
we can do it. So it was
that
fun.
could be fun. One of my favorite debunks of all time is Billy Meyer when it comes to UFOs. Do you know who Billy Meyer is or was?
No, I don't.
He was a Swiss guy. He had these videos, and what he would do is clearly it was some sort of model on a string, and he would sway them back and forth, right? And then he was an opportunist. So the background, there would be like these trees, right? And they would be swaying in the breeze, and he would make it look as if when this thing was moving, it was creating force that would make the trees move.
Wow.
And he took pictures. He said that these Pleiades aliens, that he was friends with them, and that he would go back in time with these aliens, and they showed him the dinosaurs, and he had pictures of dinosaurs, and he had pictures of these Pleiades women, and he also had photos of Mars and all this. And what it turned out to be was he was taking photos of books, and they were all, of course, extremely blurry. The Pleiades women were it was from some like talent show that was on over in Switzerland that he took pictures of. And, I mean, for a long time, there are still people to this day that believe in this man. Of course, there's a thing about once you've given a charlatan power over you, you rarely get it back. And I do feel for those people, but at the same time, it's been a blatant debunk where they've shown the actual books that he took pictures of, and you look at the pictures next to each other, and it's clearly the same photo. But recreating UFO stuff, I can imagine, taught you quite a bit about how that's done.
Yeah. I mean, every time I create something or recreate something, I learn something new. And that's the beauty of it. There are so many times where I'm sent a video or a photograph, or I come across it on social media, and I don't know how it's done. I know the effect. Like, I know what I'm looking at. I know what I'm looking at is not real, or that it is real, but it's not what they're trying to make me believe it is.
Right.
And there's that uncanny valley thing that happens where I'm like, all right, something's wrong with it. And I mean, there's times where I'm looking at it on the screen that's in front of me here. Like, I don't know. And then I'll get up, I'll be over there looking at it. I'll be out in the hallway looking through the door at the screen to see if I, some different perspective gives me like that aha moment. But then most of the time I'm just dive in, like, let's just see if I can do this. What do I know? What do I have on hand that I can do this with? And most of the time, as long as I have fishing line, I usually am pretty good. I can figure out something. But from practical effects like fishing line, or just having someone off camera and pushing it, so many things are so simple. Where when you're looking at a video, like right now, I mean, if something fell off the shelf back here, like if I was just standing here for a short video, you might not know that somebody might be kneeling down behind this chair.
For sure.
Because you just can't see them. And so many times I see like a chair or a table move, and at the bottom of the screen, like right here, there is another chair that's blocking your view. And I've literally done stuff where I should have been in full view of the camera, but because I had a chair strategically placed, you can't see me, and I'm on the floor just moving the legs of a chair, going around and making it look like, it's floating by itself, especially when you pick it up and it's just kind of floating and then you toss it, which my wife doesn't like when I do, because she doesn't like when I start throwing furniture around, but it's for science, so it's okay.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot you learn.
Yeah. Now, as a chief investigator for the Committee of Skeptical Inquiry, what are some of your most notable investigations or debunkings?
Oh, so let's see. There's been quite a few things I've been able to get my hands in. There's a couple psychics that I've dealt with that I love talking about, because one, they both deal with children, missing children, and I hate when children are exploited. I absolutely hate it, and it's a trigger for me, so I get into it. And two, I was able to show conclusively that the psychics did not help whatsoever. Right. One of them dealt with a missing person case. It was a missing teenager in a different state, and I came across it on social media. There was an advertisement, and it was like, here's the anecdote telling about how I solved this case. And it was from a different point of view, somebody else's perspective. I think the teenager's grandmother wrote and saying, "Oh, thank you so much for finding my granddaughter. You came out from out of state and you were able to do this and do that." So I contacted the psychic. I reached out and said, "Hey, like you claim you worked with police on this, and that you led police to the teenager. I mean, that's a pretty bold claim, from not knowing anything about the case and coming from out of state to be able to pinpoint and lead the police right to them. That's pretty amazing. So what do you have to back that up?" Like, I asked about the police department. What the police department? And the response I got was, "What business is it of yours?" So that was the first wrong answer. I said, and I responded politely, professionally, just saying, "Hey, this is my business. You're making a bold claim and you're trying to make it look like you helped this, and I'm not so sure about this. I have some doubts and I want to verify it. And if I can verify everything you're saying, then so be it. That's what I'll write, that everything checked out and I don't know what's going on here." So I was immediately blocked on social media from this account, which is kind of, I get it, but we all have stock accounts. So I just went back on, looked her up, and I did some digging and found out what the police department that she worked with, because she did an interview for a local newspaper. I was able to find that and found out the name of the detective that she talked to, and I called him, and I spoke to him. Very nice gentleman. I said, "This is what the interview says. This is what she says on her social media. I'm trying to verify that." And he laughed and said, "No, she did not help. All she did was tell us exactly what we told the family." So she regurgitated information back. They found the teenager because of a local neighbor called in and said, "Hey, there's a trailer that's been down the block from me, and it's been there for like years, and it's been empty, but now there's a light on. So you might want to check that." They checked it, found the teenager. Boom. Case solved. The psychic did not have anything to do with it, but yet she was claiming this. And that's the thing. Like, she was claiming this story as something that she solved. And when you do that, she's also promoting her tour, like, or she's going to these events, and she'll be doing readings here. But come check me out. Come spend money on my readings because I helped with this. And that's complete bullshit.
Yeah.
You don't do that. The second case that I worked on, actually, that first case, I have a letter hanging up where she sent me a cease and desist and like a threat of legal action against me because I wrote about it and published the article. And I mean, my shit goes through legal, so like I have to answer for everything that I write for. This is not just a blog. I can't just write on social media anything I want. I have to go through editors, fact checkers, my boss, and then legal when I name anyone. So I'm pretty sure my stuff is solid. So yeah, that was funny. I had that hanging up because I'm proud of that.
Absolutely.
The second one dealt with a local case here in New York. It was just happened. I believe it happened about a year ago now. But there was a young girl, I think she was only like 6 or 7 years old, or 8, something. She was at a campground, riding bikes around with friends of hers, like cousins. She took a last loop around this like campground circle kind of thing, and that was the last anyone saw of her. She disappeared, and it was quick action because the parents came out, looked for her. Luckily, they knew most of the people in the campground, so it was like immediate action. People were up looking for her, calling out for her. They got the park rangers involved. The park rangers called, got state troopers involved. So literally overnight, they had state troopers, they had search hounds, they had the FBI came in because the governor came in and said, we're going to find this child. It was amazing, the community that came together. And how do I want to put this? All right, so I saw a news broadcast about this, and there was a news segment where they interviewed a local psychic who claimed that she had given information to the police, which led to the recovery of this little girl. And spoiler here, the little girl was recovered fine. She was not hurt, not harmed. She was good. She went back to her family only 2.5 or 3 days later. So it had a happy ending. So I'm really, really happy about that. So this psychic went on the TV, and she's on the news saying that she helped out, that she gave certain information to the police, and she's not allowed to tell the news reporter, but she did help them find the child. So I started digging into it, and I found out that the kidnapper was in the campground, and he kidnapped a girl. He then later that night, he dropped off a ransom note at 4 in the morning. He dropped off a ransom note at the parents' house in their mailbox. And luckily there was an undercover cop staking out the place. Didn't stop him right away because he didn't want to spook him. Waited. They got the ransom note, got a print off of it, was able to tie it to a guy that had a sex offender record, and then tracked him down to a trailer behind his mother's house, raided the trailer, found the little girl. She was locked in a cabinet, but she was unharmed, and she was taken back to her parents safe. So all this was done with police work. So I actually called the public information officer from the police department that was involved with that, and I talked to her and asked her just bluntly. I was like, this is what I'm dealing with. I'm trying to verify this. Did this psychic give you any information that helped the case? And she's like, I know exactly who you're talking to. I know the news reporter that did this, and I can tell you, no, she did not give us any information that helped with this case. It was all police work. So in this case, and I feel myself getting angry now because this really triggers me. One, this person openly exploited this case, this kidnapping case of a child, in order to sell tickets for her upcoming event, because that's what it did. She immediately promoted her her gallery readings that were coming up, and she sold out. All the shows sold out, which pisses me off. The second thing that really pissed me off was that she was taking away the good, honest police work that was done. I mean, the law enforcement came together and did a fucking awesome job and caught this guy. I mean, this could have ended really bad, but everything was done. It was right on point, and police solved this case, not a psychic.
Yeah.
So in cases like that, yeah, I get really angry and agitated that so much attention is taken away from the actual people that work, and then someone's misery. I mean, I can't imagine what those parents were going through,
Right.
And much less the little girl. I mean, holy shit! And then have someone on TV going, "Oh yeah, I helped solve that. Come spend $35 for a ticket for my show." Fuck you.
Yes, it's absolutely disgusting.
Sorry.
It's disgusting. And I mean, she's not. I look at it. It's sort of the same as stolen valor. These police officers, the police work, solved this thing, got her back with her family, and just an innocent little child. Oh man, I get worked up about that myself. When children are being exploited in any way, shape, or form, I really get irritated. No words.
And I was really upset. I contacted the station manager, and the reporter himself, and said, "Look, this is here's the article that I published. All the facts are there. I referenced everything. You promoted somebody that lied.
Yeah.
They did not help. You didn't talk to the people that gave you this information. You just said that you contacted the police, and you got a bullshit statement. You didn't actually dig into it. You did shoddy journalism. You did shitty journalism, and you also promoted someone that's a complete fake in this instance. And you should be ashamed of yourself. You're responsible. The news, I mean, as I grew up, the news was responsible for giving you the facts and presenting information that was accurate and researched and vetted, or not just giving an opinion. I mean, unless it was an opinion piece, but I expected more. And I said, you let down your audience. You published or broadcast this segment, which was complete shit. And I think you let down your audience because you did a fluff piece and you didn't give them what you said. And I also their tagline was something about giving you the truth all the time. And I was like, there's your tagline. It's on your website. It's on your flyers. It's on your commercials. You didn't do that. You totally went back on this. So good job. Maybe do better next time.
Right. Well, you shifting away from shitty people, you frequently host workshops deconstructing and explaining paranormal photography.
Yes.
Can you share some common misconceptions people have about paranormal photos?
Yeah, sure. One that your cameras can capture ghosts. I mean, that's the biggest one. That I know that it's a belief, and that's what it is. It's a belief.
Right.
The camera, depending on what you're using. So if you're using film, it's looking at the visible light spectrum, and unless you're using infrared film, you're using just regular film, what you see is what you get. If you can see it, the film's going to pick it up. If you can't see it, the film's not going to pick it up. Your digital cameras are a little bit different. And this is hopefully I'm going to demonstrate this, because your digital cameras have a filter on it. They usually have what's called an IR cut filter, and that blocks. It's a kind of a misdirect kind of name, because it's saying a cut filter, and you think oh, it's cutting out IR, and it is, but it's not all of it. So it's letting a little bit of the infrared spectrum come in, but for the most part. All right, so I'm gonna demonstrate this. Hopefully you can see this. Let's see. All right, so this is the light for a remote. Oh, you know what? You can't see it because the spotlight. Let me turn that off and see if this works.
I
there
see
you
it
go.
there. Yeah.
See it blinking?
Yep.
Oh, you can see from there. Duh. It's a digital camera. I should know better. So there you go. I don't even have to do that. There you go. Like, I can't see that, but your camera can.
Right.
I feel like an idiot now. I'm so used to doing that trick that I just went into the routine. But basically, your camera's going to pick up a little bit of infrared light, so it sees a little bit more, and that's something you have to be aware of when you're in any place that has security cameras, because most of your surveillance cameras will have infrared LEDs that circle around the lens, or they have something exterior. You have to be careful of that because your camera will pick it up. You will get things like lens flare that come up. See that right there?
Yep, I saw it.
Like
I
right
see
there,
it.
you see the flashing.
Uh-huh.
That's lens flare, and it's going to make these little like orb-like things or half moon kind of images, and you might see that from way down a hallway and not realize what you're looking at. When other ghost hunters are in the area and they have cameras with their infrared lights on it or UV lights, your camera's going to see it a lot better than you are. So you have to be aware of that kind of stuff. Long exposures. We talked about like ghost hunters turning the flash off.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that. Please stop doing that, because what you're doing is the camera, your digital camera, whether it's your phone or an actual camera, it's got a light sensor in it. It's got an internal light sensor, and it's looking at the environment and it's saying, hey, there is not enough light here to take a normal picture. When I say normal, it usually means the time the lens or the aperture is open to take the picture is about 1/60th ish a second, give or take a little bit. Sometimes it's like 1/30th of a second. So think about that.
Yeah.
Taking 1 second of time and slicing it 30 times or 60 times and taking one slice, and that's how long your camera is open to take that picture. When it's a low light situation, like when you're in a house and everyone's like, oh, it's time to go dark, stop doing that. Just stop that. But when it's dark, your camera is now going, well, it's really dark in here. We might want to stay open for like half a second. We want to stay open for a full second. That way we can take in enough light in order to make a decent image. And with that, if you're hand holding your camera, you like my camera case.
I love that. It's awesome.
Oh, it matches my shirt. Look at that.
Sure does.
I got the demo. If you're taking a picture like this handheld, and you can see, like, I'm trying to hold it steady, but you can see that it's moving.
Mm-hmm.
I can't hold this steady because
Right.
nobody can hold it
Right.
steady. That's going to transfer onto the image. So lights, like right in front of me, I have my ring light in front. That's going to cause like just a little distortion. It's probably going to be very soft because it's so close. But if something's so far away, and it's a little light that this camera is going to pick up, that little movement is going to turn into a lot of movement. Think of it. Here's an example that you can do, a little mini experiment, if you will. Take your camera on your phone, and everyone's going to do this. I want everyone at home watching to do this. Take it and zoom it in all the way. There you go. Now I'm going to try and hold it steady. And you can see, like, it's moving around.
Right.
All right, so let me see if I can get a point here. All right, say right there in the middle, that little white dot there. Say that's a point of light down the hallway. All right, you see how much that's moving around now?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to hold it steady. Now imagine I'm not zoomed in all the way. It's still moving that much. That's
Right.
going to draw a line of light on your image during a long exposure. And if you do that, if you look up, like, it's called light painting. And it's basically when you open the camera up, it's doing like a 30-second exposure. You can take a flashlight and you can write a message in the air. It's really fun. It's a cool technique, but most of us do that by accident.
Yeah.
When you're in a a haunted house or a location for a ghost hunt, and you're taking pictures in the dark, and say someone has a security lamp or a security camera down there with infrared lights, somebody has a flashlight, somebody has a REM pod or a EMF meter they all have LEDs on them, and you moving is going to cause that little light to draw a line on the image.
Right.
And it's fascinating. I mean, that's something I see a lot. And it also doesn't help if you take a picture without a flash and it's a long exposure and you have like light behind you. Say you have a light in a room behind you. It's casting out into the area in front of you. You're going to have that ambient light. So you might capture somebody walking across the scene with that ambient light. They're going to be blurred because they're in motion at the time.
Right.
But say somebody else takes a picture with a flash right next to you. Now their flash illuminates everything really quick, really bright, but then dies out. Your camera's still taking a picture. What you're going to get is a blurry kind of transparent image of a figure going into a solid figure because the flash hit the person that goes into another transparent kind of ghostly blurry figure. It's really cool effect. But sometimes people misinterpret that as, hey, there's ghosts on either side of them, or there's a ghost going in. Look, it went through him.
Right.
It went through that guy because it's on either side and it's all blurry. It looks like it's in motion. That's because it is, because it's that guy that you took a picture of. So these are very simple things that can happen. There's a lot more. I mean, from lens flare to optical illusions. I mean, that happens. You really have to know what you're taking a picture of. Too many people do this. You know, they're taking pictures at random. They're not looking at what they're taking a picture of. And you can easily forget or not notice that someone's in the background. Because if you're taking a picture and you're focused on like somebody in front of you and you're not looking at the background, and I gotta say, like, so many people say, I know what I saw. So many people say, oh, I was paying attention. And so many people are not. They're just not. I know they're well-intentioned. They're trying to do it. But when you're talking to somebody in front of you and you're like, oh, let me get a picture of you, and they take a picture of that person that they're talking to, all of their focus and attention is on that person. They're not looking in the background. So yeah, there could be somebody that walked in. There could be somebody that poked their head in a doorway and realized, oh shit, you took a picture, and then try to get out of the picture real quick. They won't be illuminated as the person that's right in front of you because the flash didn't hit them as well. They could be blurry because they were so far away and in the dark that they get motion blur because they're in motion. There's so many things. So, I mean, if you get a strange picture, the first thing I would advise is don't think it's paranormal. Don't think it's a ghost. Think, I don't know what this is. Let me see if I can recreate it. Let me see if there's any clues in the area where I took this picture. And if not, then hey, let me reach out to somebody that might know. Let me talk to somebody else that might know.
Yeah.
And like reach out to me. I know Joe Fatale, he's in the chat room. He's pretty good at this too. Yeah. I mean, you can send him pictures and he can usually figure out what's going on. So yeah, look for that because that's your best bet. That's part of being an investigator. I mean,
right.
we're talking like an overall theme about what that title means and stuff. And that usually means knowing your limits and knowing what you don't know and knowing, hey, I need to go out and consult someone that is an expert or very experienced in this field and can tell me what I'm looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of, at least the YouTube ghost hunters, if you call them, they don't go any further than just what they're presented for that night. If something happens, it's easy to just say, oh, well, this is a ghost, rather than reach out to somebody. Like you're saying, if you're out of your element, realize that and find somebody who specializes in this kind of thing. And that may not be so easy for everybody to just do, but I mean, we do have the internet. And I think I've learned that reaching out to people, even people you don't know, you can get their attention. And a lot of times they're happy to help, you know?
Right. I mean, if you're at least for me, and this is just for me. If you reach out and just say, hey, if you don't mind, I have a photo. If you have time, could you take a look at it? And just let me know what your thoughts are. That's cool. I mean, I don't mind doing that at all. I will take a look. I will literally stop usually what I'm doing and go, all right, let me look at this. Let me all right. Run it through my software a little bit. All right, yeah, confirmed. All right, I know what this is. And I'll give you an explanation. What I don't like is when the title says, I have a ghost, and it's all caps. And it's like, all right. And then you open the email, and it's like 17 pages of every single thing that's happened in their life, except for a description of what the photograph is supposed to be.
Yeah.
I don't answer those. I immediately delete them just because I'm not going to waste my time on that. Or if you put the entirety of your description in the title, I have a pet peeve about that.
Yeah.
It's like everything is in the title, nothing is in the body of the email, and it's like, all right, I don't know if you know how to write a letter, so please do better.
Yeah. Sky Talker with the 2 gifted GhostQuest memberships. She's given one to Rawside Paranormal. Laura, who I will be having on the show soon. And Sharon was also gifted a membership. So thank you, Sky, for that. She calls me Cousin Sky, so I call her Cousin Sky as well.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So you co-host Explorers and Travelers with Donna. Is that something you still do?
Explorers and Travelers.
Yeah, is that a thing? Is that right? That's not you?
No.
Am I crossed?
K&D Adventures.
Okay. I must have the title wrong. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I make mistakes.
What did I do? I mean, because I've done so much over the last couple of years that I have to think sometimes, like, did I do that? I did. Or maybe I did. I don't know. Did I?
But you work with Donna.
We had a channel. Donna is my wife. And for a while we were doing a channel called K&D Adventures. Okay. So Kenny and Donna. And we would just go out and explore abandoned places, new experiences, museums, just go out and film us just enjoying life. And that was it. Let's enjoy life. Let's get out there, see what's going on. See what the world has to offer, and have fun with it. And that's what we did for a while. And then we moved up here and we kind of stopped. Well, actually, I think we did it during COVID. I forget how long we've been doing it. I think we were doing it through COVID, and it was just the 2 of us. So we didn't have to worry about, we were already living together. So we didn't have to worry about too many other people. And we just went out to places where we could just hike or explore, like ruins, abandoned places, like I said, that kind of stuff. And then it got out of the pandemic, or started getting out of the pandemic, and we teamed up with a few other people. We would go out and meet up with friends. Tom from Tom's World, he does a YouTube channel called Tom's World and explores a lot of stuff in the Philadelphia area of Pennsylvania. We hooked up with him a few times and went out exploring, and it was fun. It was a break from like paranormal stuff. We weren't worried about that. It was more like, let's see what else is out there to experience. And sometimes we got like we took a tour. What was it? What was the tour? There was a tour of like I forget what it was. It was like circus organs and paintings, and it was like a museum of antique circus and just amusement stuff. And it was so big. It was a personal collection. It was so big, you got on a trolley. You got on a trolley inside the building, and they drove you around.
Wow.
This whole thing. And we recorded the whole thing, and they were really nice. They gave us free passes to go through. And we were allowed to get out and look at certain things. And I mean, it was like Christmas villages that big department stores would have. Right. They would take after the department store was done, and they would set them back up in this big warehouse. Right. It was fascinating. We went to Ringing Rocks Park it was Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and it's certain boulders that out there, and when you struck it with a hammer, it rang like a bell. It was really cool. It was the content of the stone that did this, but it was a big park, and it was like surrounded by trees, and it's just this one field of nothing but these boulders, and people just sitting around and just tap tap tap, just ringing. I mean, it's kind of silly, but it was fun.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome.
We had fun.
That sounds awesome.
We did that for quite a while, and we moved up here, and I think we're still just settling in.
Yeah,
it's been a year and a half since we moved up here to Buffalo, New York, and I'm working a lot. I work all the time, and we've had a lot of events, and I think we're still getting settled into the area. And I mean, we have gone on some hikes just to see what was around, but we have been talking about that the last couple of weeks. Like, we need to get back into this. We need to get back out and explore, because there's so much. I mean, Niagara Falls, that's only 20 minutes away, but there are so many other places to see and things to do around here. It's an entirely new world to us. So I want to make the best of it. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, sometimes, I mean, when you're enveloped in the kind of work you do, it's nice to take a break from that and to do something, especially with somebody that you care so much about, like your wife. Sky, again, with another gifted membership to Natu Haunted. Thank you so much. So, how do you approach teaching critical thinking and skepticism to different audiences, especially those who firmly believe in the paranormal?
My number one rule is the Patrick Swayze rule, and that's be nice. I think that's the best approach. Don't come out fighting, don't be confrontational. Talk, have conversations. These are everyone that I engage with. I was there, like I went through some of the stuff that they went through. I had some similar beliefs. And I understand where they come from the most part, but when I don't, I want to know. The best way to talk to somebody is to understand where they're coming from, why they believe what they believe, why they think the way they do, why do they hesitate. These are questions, and we need, the only way you're going to know is if you ask. So talk to everyone, be open to talk. I mean, if you are so set on your beliefs, then I don't see a reason to be worried about being questioned. If someone brings it up and questions a belief that you have because maybe something doesn't make sense to them, that should be fine. I mean, and my philosophy is with that part is, if you put your beliefs out into the public, then it is open for criticism and critique. I mean, it's not open season. I mean, it is, but that's not the approach you want to say. Like, oh, well, your beliefs are out there, I can beat the shit out of them if I want to. No, if you're putting your beliefs out there, then it's open for discussion. I can ask a question. If you don't want to be questioned, then maybe keep your personal beliefs personal.
Right.
I think it's as simple as that. So I do want to have a conversation. If somebody brings up something, if they're lecturing or giving a talk or doing a video or a live stream or write an article or a blog or whatever, it's out there in the public and it's open for anyone to ask a question. So I like to do it in the most polite and professional way I can. I don't want to come out and say, oh, well, this is dumb. I mean, that's a good way to get yourself blocked and stop the conversation. But just ask, like, what do you mean by this? I like to ask clarifying questions. If you make a statement and I don't understand what you said or what you meant, I'm going to ask you to repeat it. Like, you said this, do you mean this? Or, hey, can you clarify this statement? I'm not sure what you mean by this. And try to get more information out of you so I understand you better. And once I understand you better or where you're coming from, then maybe I can ask a question or insert hypotheticals. Like, oh, well, what about this? What if we do it this way? What else? Like, one of my favorite go-to questions is, how do you know that? It's a very simple question. It's very effective because if somebody gives you this very detailed belief, or this big belief that they stand behind, like this place is haunted because X, Y, and Z. How do you know that? Is it based on belief, like purely belief and hearsay, or do you have some data to back that up?
Right.
Because if you do, I'd like to see it. And I'm not being confrontational when I said that. Although it does come across that way.
Sure.
When you start questioning, people's first reaction is to like dig in. They want to dig their heels in and be like, I'm not moving. You're asking me questions. You're bad. But I want to know. I'm curious. I want to know how you got to that conclusion. I want to know why you're promoting this belief. And especially I want to know if you're charging $39.95 for it. I want to know. So I think being kind, being nice, and approaching it in a curious manner, showing that you're curious, and also relating to them. Like if someone says, "Hey, this new gadget, this Ghost Finder 2000 really finds ghosts. It detects ghosts." Like my first question would be like, "All right, so you say this finds ghosts or captures them or reads them. Like, what's it doing? Tell me what's inside of it. Tell me what it's doing, how it's working." Because I'm not really challenging them with that statement. I'm asking them to give me more information.
Right.
And that way it satisfies, if they have a bit of an ego, it lets them talk. So that satisfies that part. And then we also get more information. I learn more about the way it's supposed to work. And I also get a sense whether they actually know how it works or if they're making the shit up as they go.
Yeah.
Because in most cases, a lot of these devices, I do take it apart. I try to figure out what's inside. If I can't get a hold of one, I will look at either the schematics or the specs, or I'll take as close look at images I can and see if I can match it up with other components, and then figure out what they do and how they do it, so that I'm better prepared when I'm asking questions. And that's also a part of it too, making sure you're well informed. If you're going to go in, it's one thing to be curious. If you go in blind, that's one thing, but you're not going to have a good conversation. You're just going to be listening a lot. And if they say something that's wrong, you're likely not going to be able to contradict it if it is incorrect. So you want to be well informed. I like to learn about the equipment or the methodology or the pictures or the stories before I go into a conversation. Just so, not that I can be like, I know more than you. You need to be well informed. Yeah. And that's just across the board. That has nothing to do with specifically like ghost hunting or paranormal. That's across the board in life. You should be as well informed as possible going into any situation. And then if I can offer a different approach, if they're open to it, I try to say something like that. Like, are you open to hearing like a different idea? And if they are, then I'll tell them what I think, and just be honest. I try to be honest because, if you start trying to throw shit in that you made up, it's going to be hard to keep track of all that. So be honest. Say what you actually mean. Say what you actually think. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't stray off. And I don't say things that I think they want to hear, because that's not helping either one of us.
Right.
I tell them exactly what I think, what I feel, and we go from there. If they want to continue the conversation, great. If they find it insulting, I might ask why. Like, what's insulting about it? Is it because it's a question and you don't know? Or do you think, am I coming across like aggressive? And I'll do that sometimes too, because I do get serious. Like I'll go from, I like to have fun. I like to smile and laugh and joke with people, but I'll switch it to like a serious mode. And once in a while, I'll turn to my wife and be like, "Hey, am I coming on too strong?" And she'll tell me. She'll be like, "Yeah, you're being an asshole." Oh, okay. All right, good. Then I'll look at them and apologize, because I have no problem. If that's another philosophy, if you're wrong, own it.
Right.
Like if I say something wrong and you point it out to me, damn, man, you got me. Good. I didn't know. I had the wrong information. You are correct. I apologize. If I come on strong or an aggressive and I'm making someone feel silly or stupid, I don't want to do that. I want to educate. I want someone to feel good about learning something new. So if I make them feel bad about themselves or feel silly, then that's on me. That's my fault. So I will apologize for that. Unless, and here's the caveat for all of it, because the second part of the Patrick Swayze rule is until it's time to not be nice. So the whole rule is be nice until it's time to not be nice.
Yeah.
So if someone else is an asshole, I will return that in kind. And usually we do it. I had a nice conversation with a coworker today. Usually in that situation, instead of yelling or getting angry, I will continue to speak calmly, but be more direct and be more blunt about what I'm saying. And I have found that is a really good tactic because when they're already pissed off at you, your calm responses that point out inconsistencies or incorrect information only pisses them off more.
Sure does.
So yeah,
the
inner child in me goes, ha, 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 ha. We're having fun, we're getting you, asshole. But I don't like doing that, just because I want them to come back to me. I want them to be able to see me at another event and say, hey, like we had a good conversation before. We disagreed, but we still had a conversation and we parted as friends. And I mean, there's some people that I've had smackdown, almost like UFC fighting with, and we end up a couple hours later at the bar having a beer together, and just chatting, laughing at, us being silly, fighting about things.
Yeah.
And I try to get along with as many people as possible. I'm not in this to point fingers. I'm not in this to make you look bad. I'm not in this to discredit someone unless, of course, like they're exploiting people. And
right.
I'm in this for education. I'm in this to teach critical thinking, not so much teach people what to think, but how to think. That's the basis of critical thinking.
Yeah.
Asking questions, clarifying, making sure you understand things, and not accepting anything at just face value. If someone makes an assumption while they're explaining something to you, stop it, pause it right there, ask a clarifying question, get more information, make sure they understand what they're explaining to you, because if they don't, you're getting wrong information. So yeah, that was a lot. Sorry.
No, you're good. You are fine. I want to thank Poo Production Paranormal for the subscription. I've seen you around. I appreciate you. I got one more question for you, and then we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to do the questions. Yeah, me too. Me too. We'll do the questions and call-ins when we come back. But yes, we'll be, and hopefully we've got. When we had Side-Eyed Guy, we had a record of the amount of people that were calling in. I'd like to break that record today. But EVPs. Now, I did mention maybe we could go through the EVPs that I got. I think I'll save that for the documentary because there's something I want to do with the documentary. Because I spent all of the second episode debunking this guy, and now I think it's time to debunk me on the third episode. Ooh. But what are some common events that cause EVPs, do you think?
So, there's
a lot. There's a lot, right?
There is a lot. So it really depends on the device you're using and how you're approaching it. So starting with the basics, if you just have a recorder, and like I started with tape recorders, cassette tape recorders, and went to micro cassette recorders, and then went to the newer digital ones that were shitty, and then up till the newer ones that are really good, high definition quality. So there are outside noises when you place a recorder on something, whether you have a microphone or not. So if you didn't have a microphone, again, when you're using older machinery, you had internal noises, internal gears that would make noise that would be there. Depending on the tape that was used, you could have inconsistencies with the tape or creases in the tape, which would cause noises. If you had a microphone, it depends on the microphone connection. Make sure the connection was solid. And if you had a microphone, was it lying on a table? or desk or something like that, where vibrations could affect it. Friction of it just rolling around. If you bumped into the table, if you were walking on the floor, did the vibration from walking on the floor transfer to the table to the microphone? These are all things to worry about. I mean, I see you have like your microphone's in a shock mount. And I mean, my microphone is too. And this helps with the vibration, because, you know, when you bang the table and shit like that, it would transfer and make noise. That's one thing. Outside noises. So many people don't realize how noisy an environment is. Just because you can't hear it doesn't mean your microphone is not picking it up.
That's right.
And we hear that when we wear headphones. I mean, you have headphones on now. When I'm doing editing, I usually have my headphones on, and it's amazing how much my microphone picks up that I don't realize, because I do a lot of these live streams, but I don't, through StreamYard and all that, I don't wear headphones. I don't have any kind of audio feedback most of the time, like 99.9%. But most of the time I don't have to deal with that. But when you do put the headphones on, I'm amazed about how much audio and sound is coming through this microphone. And even little tiny taps. I mean, shit, when I used to do it, if my wife was sitting over here, so I'm going to show you real quick. Like, my wife sits in that chair right here, and does the show. And at several points, she would have a little container of nuts that she would eat. And hopefully Crow is not in the chat room. But just putting her hand in that, I would be like, because it would come through the headphones so loud. And you could I take the headphones off, I barely hear it.
Right.
And that is something I think most people didn't realize, that the amplification that comes through the system is so great. So you could have a recorder set down on a table. I'm doing it like you can see it. Set down on a table, and someone on the other side of the room could just go like this. And just the friction from their clothing on like the chair or the ground or whatever can be picked up by that recorder. And if you ask a question like, hey, what's your name? And somebody moves, that friction noise could be mistaken for a voice.
Right.
And again, this also goes into interpretation and expectations, because for the most part, when ghost hunters go to a location, they already think it's haunted. They already have that belief because they've heard the stories, they heard rumors, they've seen it online, they've seen their favorite TV show, this and that. They're going in with the idea of it's haunted.
Right.
And how many times have you seen, like on social media, a group is posting about they're going to this place tonight. We're going to the haunted lake mansion. I can't wait to get all the evidence. Like, that statement alone, I see that commonly, but that statement alone is already telling me, like, you're convinced you're going to get evidence. Right. You haven't even gotten there yet. You're not even in your fucking car driving there, but you think you're going to get evidence. That's not how science works. So stop doing that. But basically, yeah, I mean, under the context of, I think I'm talking to a ghost. If you're asking for a name, that's what you're expecting. So when you replay this recording later on, whether it's a few hours later, a few minutes later, or a few days later, and you hear your voice go, what's your name? You're listening for a name. Now, whether a sound comes on or not, that's one thing. If a sound comes on, you're listening under the context, under the filter that you're listening for a name. So you're going to misinterpret that as a name. And that's why, like, when I used to get them way back towards the end, when I was getting out of the ghost hunting thing, I would take the alleged EVPs and I would cut off the question and then send it out to people, and no one ever got the same answer. No one ever interpreted it the same. And because it was just, you have no context. Right. Once you take that away, it's like, I don't know what they're saying. Sometimes it was gibberish. Sometimes it was just multiple different words that people were hearing. And it was amazing. It was a fun experiment because it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know what they're hearing, but I was already primed. I was already primed to hear certain because I had already made up my mind what it said.
Right.
And I don't know if I was right. I probably wasn't, but I had made up my mind. So I was comparing it. I was comparing all of their answers to what I already thought it said and saying they're all wrong, but
Right.
I could very well be wrong. So that's just a tiny bit. We're not even into
Right,
all
sure. Sure, there's a bunch to it. I know it was a loaded question, but it's for me, I find EVPs just the most fascinating out of all. Again, because I have a history of knowing microphone and frequency response and understanding all the things that you're talking about when you're talking about. It's amazing what a microphone will pick up, and if you're in a busy area, you might hear someone's voice outside coming through, and again, you can misinterpret what you're hearing. It's just it's quite you have to know how to filter, and I feel like I have a pretty good filter, and that's why when I have my EVPs that I will present to you, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about them.
Okay.
But
I mean, we can also go on real quick, like that whole concept of not understanding how much this microphone picks up compared to what we hear. If you're not used to that, if you're not used to wearing headphones, but only like when you listen to the recording later on, if you're not ready for that, you're not properly prepared for the difference, the comparison of the two, because you're only going by what you hear with your ears, and then later on listening to a recording. You're not actively listening at the time to understand how much that's picking up. So, All right.
Fair enough. All right, well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we will do our questions and call-ins. Again, thank you so much for being here, Kenny. I really do appreciate it.
I'm having fun.
Yeah, good. Me too. All right, everybody, we will be back in a few minutes. Everybody get your spiced rum if you haven't yet. We'll see you soon. All right, welcome back, everybody. At the top of the chat, you will see a link to StreamYard. You click on that, and it will put you in queue, where we will be able to bring you up live and ask Kenny a question. And I ask that you ask your question within 60 seconds. If you want to stay on the stage while he answers the question, that is perfectly fine. Be sure to leave promptly after he has answered the question. That way, I can get more callers on here quickly. And
we're trying to beat Side Eye Guy's record.
Yes, we are. Yes,
get on here, everyone.
I have a theory, or a thought, I should say, about what ghosts are. And I wonder if it's possible that it isn't at all the spirits of people who are deceased, that it is possibly some sort of non-biological life. Something that is alive, but not like you or I. What do you think about that idea? That's something that you think... I mean, of course, it's a theory, and science has no way... We have no way to prove that that's accurate, because we can't capture or contain or whatever. But that's a thought. I've thought maybe perhaps certain UFO sightings, like... They talk about these balls of light that come down that are the size of a soccer ball or whatever, and they explode into little bitty lights that go out and survey or whatever and come back together into the one big light and shoot off. That doesn't sound like technology to me. It sounds like more like something that could potentially be alive. What do you think?
So there's a few things here. One, I'm gonna start with my a pet peeve. So the way you said it first, I think was correct, and then I think you might have made a mistake on the
okay
following it up, and I'll explain. Thought and theory. So it's not a theory. theory is used as a slang term, but if you're going to use it in conjunction with science, then it is certainly not a theory. A theory is the end of the road. Well, just a step before law, scientific law. So what you propose is an idea. It's not even a hypothesis yet, because a hypothesis is usually like, I have a question and here's why I think this way. And it's a little bit more thought out. So I do like when you start it off, I'm right with you. It's a thought. And so on that, it is a thought. And unfortunately, it appeals to my science fiction nature. I love that kind of thing. I mean, I grew up with Star Wars and Star Trek. I mean, especially, I'm a big Star Wars fan, but growing up with Star Trek, you had so many different kinds of life that was featured on that show. You also had like Stargate. I'm a big fan of Stargate. And you saw lots of different life forms on that show. But science fiction gives us these thoughts, these ideas of what might be out there, whether it applies to aliens or spirits. So I guess the idea is, I mean, it's a thought, and that's the start, but that's all it is right now. Yeah. It's just as much saying it's the spirits of dead people. It's some kind of electromagnetic interference. I mean, these are thoughts, but not proven yet. Either way, so I can't give you an answer either way. I'm not going to say you're wrong because I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I don't have that belief that ghosts exist. I don't maintain a belief that ghosts and spirits exist. So right now I'm starting at a different place than you. When you bring up that thought, my thought process is now, well, all right, let's look into this. How could that be? We'd have to figure out a way, non-biological, robotic, AI. Okay. Are these things possible? Like, we know it's physical. We know there's physical properties to these things. So how does that translate into something that somebody would call a ghost? And then we go into the question that I think you asked during the break, like, what is a ghost?
Right.
I mean, that's a big topic. It's so much bigger than people realize. So, and then with stuff like when you tell stories about like the light thing, the big ball of light that comes down, breaks apart, and then it comes back together. These are stories. I don't see any evidence that these stories actually happened. These are just stories that are they're hearsay. So before we start looking at that and saying, well, there's this story, that might help explain this. It doesn't help explain anything.
Sure.
Because it's a story that's unproven. That's just the same as me saying, well, unicorns live in the cul-de-sac behind my house. And that's just an idea that I'm throwing out there. And you have to show that it's wrong.
Right.
I mean, well, actually, that's not correct. The burden of proof is on me because I made the claim. So I have to prove that unicorns are there. You don't have to accept it. And the same with the thoughts that you're presenting. Either the ball of light that comes down and splits apart, whoever offered that story or that anecdote, it's the burden is on them to prove that actually happened and wasn't just a special effects video that someone was promoting their career on.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that spirits may be non-biological entities or something like that. Again, it's a thought, but it's still on you because you're the one presenting that thought. It's on you to present some kind of evidence in support of that. And I mean, I can, my job as a skeptical investigator, I mean, I look into these things, but to be honest, I don't really have to. I mean, I'm not obligated to look into any of this stuff.
Right.
I do it because I love it. I do it because it helps further the education of the people that follow my work. But if somebody walks up, if you walk up to me, oh, my boot's stuck in my chair. Sorry. I was like, I can't get out. Help me. If somebody comes up and says, my house is haunted, I can just say, all right, show me. I don't have to do anything. I really don't have to do anything. I can just sit there and say, show me the evidence and wait to see what they have. But then, of course, that's not going to last because I'm curious. And I'm like, all right, let me see. Let me get into there. So, yeah, I mean, I can't tell you you're wrong. I can tell you, it's a cool story, bro. But I need something more. Like, it's just a story. It's not something basic.
I'm not really after an answer so much, just, because to me, I don't hear a lot of people discussing that. And I think for me, it's just the idea of putting it out there and having the discussion, at this point, just talking about it and trying to get, because I think that explanation is just as good as it's the spirits of dead people walking around, you know?
I mean, you're in the right place. I mean, we have really deep philosophical discussions around here. My coworker, Eric behind the wall, who works behind the wall here, we have really in-depth conversation. We will take something like that, a concept like that, and sit here for an hour and talk about it and try to figure out like what could happen. I mean, we were asked the other day, the 3 Tortured Souls show that I do, somebody asked, like, if we, since we don't know the properties of a ghost, what do we think, the 3 of us, what do we think a ghost would be made of in order to satisfy all the qualities that we know? Like that a ghost can walk through walls but not fall through the floor, that it can be transparent sometimes or opaque or a solid, that it can disappear at random, that it's not it can't be caught per se by physical means, stuff like that. Like, what do we think a ghost would be made of? And to be honest, like, we all kind of sat there and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what combination of elements would make up that particular set of properties that would be qualified as a ghost. I don't know. So, I mean, it's fun though.
We do have some callers. I will get to them in just a second. Before that, Not Too Haunted asked, Kenny Biddle, are any ghost... Yes, please. Are any ghost tools, paranormal tools, useful and not false positives?
Ghost tools. So, I mean, if a device or gadget is marketed directly to ghost hunters, I would say pass. I would just say pass, especially one, because it's probably going to be expensive, way more expensive than it really is. And 2, depending on what the claim is, like many of these tools claim to communicate with ghosts, detect ghosts, capture ghosts. And none of these 3 have been proven at all. They are just open claims. They are claims that are made without any supporting evidence. So it's false advertising, honestly, and shouldn't be doing it. Because I usually ask for like consumer reports, like where's the data that backs up these advertising strategies, like what's going on. So, and I think a lot of the false positives readings or interpretations come from the interpretation. Like a EMF meter is it's a tool. It's a tool, but it's not a ghost hunting tool.
Right.
It's used to measure the strength of an electromagnetic field. That's it. It's not going to tell you the frequency. It's not going to tell you, most of the times it doesn't really tell you the direction. I mean, you got to kind of figure it out. But if you have 2 intersecting fields, you're going to get an average of those 2 readings. So there's a lot of room for misinterpretation, but it is an actual tool. Some people do use it for work, for their jobs, electricians, for example. But when it's borrowed and taken to a hobby like ghost hunting, the interpretation is the problem. Right. It's, what does it actually do? Is it calibrated? There's a big question. Anything that takes a reading, it's supposed to be an accurate reading, is it calibrated? That's a big question, because they usually are from the start, but things like that have to be recalibrated, especially when they're thrown in your bag, tossed in the back of your car, and bounced around as you travel to place to place to place. You need calibration. So I think a lot of it comes from misinterpretation, not understanding how the device works, not understanding what the measurements on the device actually mean. And then the assumptions by the ghost hunting community in general, from like TV and YouTube videos and stuff like that, giving you the impression that like if the light is yellow, then something's weird, or the light is red, something's weird. That's not the case. That's just tribal knowledge kind of thing. So
Right.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, fair enough. Jody Music asks, is Kenny the nicest and happiest of the debunkers? Hi, all lurking while working. I seem to think Kenny's awfully nice and happy. That's my opinion.
Okay. I mean, I am generally happy. I have what I think is the best job in the world. I get to do this kind of stuff all day. I get to read, research, learn new things, experiment, try to recreate various videos and photographs. I get to do live streams like this and talk to people like you, which is always interesting and entertaining. I get to branch out. I get to travel the country, investigating, lecturing, taking part in like seminars and conferences. I love it. I love it. It's my passion. I will never stop. They will take my dead body out of this office because I'm not going to ever quit. And even if they fire me, I'm still coming in. And I'll do it for free just because I love it. So am I happy? Yes. And I don't let things get to me. I used to, but I don't let it get to me. This is not personal. This is business to me. It's my personal passion, but my work is my business. So like I said, I can argue and debate, and I will call out people who deserve it. But in the end, if you're a nice person and you're sincere, even if we have a heated debate, I'll still take you out and buy you a beer. You know, we can hang out and we can talk about other things. I mean, shit. I like to brag about this a little bit, but Jason Hawes, probably one of the most well-known ghost hunters on TV, like he and I are good friends. I talk to him once a week, you know, on the phone. We go back and forth, we text back and forth, and it's not always about paranormal shit. It's just, hey man, how's your day? What's going on, you know, in your area, or different things? How's your family? You know, what's going on? I saw you on vacation, you know, stuff like that. And we disagree on quite a few things, but we also agree on a lot. He's much more skeptical than most people think, but we can debate and we can have a good argument, like a good argument, but still like, all right, dude, you ready? You good? You want to get something to eat? Yeah, let's go. and it's over. So it can happen, you know. It's just, I am happy. I'm happy at my job and life. So there you go.
Good.
My wife keeps me in line.
Yeah. Good. We all need somebody to help keep us in line, don't we? I'm going to bring on Michael Burkeen to the show. Welcome back, Michael Burkeen. You got a question for Kenny today?
Yeah. Hey, Jimmy and Kenny.
How you doing?
First of all, Wisdom. I'm doing good. How about you?
Good.
First of all, Wisdom asked me if I wanted to boggle your mind, I should talk to you about the theory of relativity. But instead of doing that, I just wanted to ask you a question. What's the hardest thing that you ever had to debunk?
Ooh, well, I'm glad you went to that question instead of relativity, because that's not my area. So I would actually just say, I don't know, and move on. The hardest thing that I had to debunk. Wow, that's pretty good. Usually things take me, if it's a picture or video, sometimes it takes like a few minutes up to a few days. So for a while I was doing TikTok videos, and I still do them once in a while, but I was doing a lot. And there was a guy named Leighton who was in the UK, and he was doing a video every single day, putting it out. And he was doing a different trick, but claiming that his apartment was haunted and that it was a ghost doing it. So every day he would post one. I'd see it in the morning, and then I would spend that day and figure it out and recreate it by that afternoon. And this was ongoing for like 2 months. We did this. And I know the guy was like so pissed off because I was just bam, bam, bam. And then he came up with one. What was it? There was the one with the money. So he had a dollar bill, but it wasn't an American dollar. It was a UK version of a dollar bill. And he had it in a sealed container, and he had a bunch of coins all around it, pieces of ripped paper all around it. And he still got the money to move around inside the sealed container. And to be honest, I was like, I don't know how he's fucking doing this. I don't know what's going on here. And it took me like 2 or 3 days to figure out that the most likely cause, and I don't know the actual reason because he would not, he wasn't going to tell me what he did. But he actually had it here. So I use this for my demonstration. And if I bring it really, like if I do this, if I show you this and say, oh, look, I'm using this, there's nothing on it. It's just a bill from Australia. No big deal. But if I come close to the camera, I think you'll see right there, there's a piece of metal.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a paper clip. I cut
Talking about that circular thing right there?
Yeah. Right. Let me see. Yeah, right there.
Gotcha.
I think you can see it. There's one there, and then there's one on the number 1. There's a longer piece right there. So just using these little pieces of a metal paper clip, and I taped it onto this dollar bill, I was able to use a magnet from right off camera to make this dance around. And it was so
cool.
fun, but it took me a while to do. And some of the things that he did, same thing. I mean, he was getting more creative because he was running out of ideas to fake these things. So the more I did, the more difficult it became. But I mean, sometimes I had to run string around different pieces of furniture and this and that. Like I said, sometimes it takes me a few days, and this one took me like 2 or 3 days to figure out, because I'm also a perfectionist. And if somebody says you need to recreate this, to me, that means I need to recreate this exactly how they did it. So if there's any difference, like I did it once and I did it on the desk, but he did it on a floor, like a concrete floor. And I was like, oh shit, like I can't do it on a desk because I have every.
There's going to be some differences.
Right. Yeah. So I make sure that I do everything exactly. And I've gone even, if you see, I know it's little, but there's a box of Ritz crackers up here on the shelf behind me. And that's because in one of his videos, he made that move around a table by itself. And I went out to the store and found the exact same box so I could use it, so no one could say, well, you're using a different box. I used the same box, and it came out really good. So I hope that answered your question.
It did. Thank you guys for having me on here.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, for coming on. Have a good one.
That was
all
cool.
right. Now we're going to bring on another regular, Teshi. Welcome to the show, Teshi. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
That's awesome.
Yeah, Seg is no longer the weirdest one of us.
Yeah.
I'm taking a picture of this.
So my question is probably a loaded question, but I've been asking it to everybody. Where do you think the debunking and the ghost hunting community should be going to in the future?
Wow. So how am I going to answer this? All right. So let me start with the ghost hunting community. Stop faking shit. Okay. That's rule number 1. Stop faking shit, because you make everyone look stupid. Everyone, all your colleagues, your friends, everyone that's in the community with you that you associate with, you make us all look stupid. So stop it. And for the rest of them that don't fake it, talk, have conversations, talk with the debunkers, because most of the debunkers that I deal with or engage with, like Side Eye Guy, Beardo, Josh from Paranormal Seekers, and Crow that's in the chat too. I mean, these guys are trying to stop the foolishness. They're trying to stop people faking stuff and helping people understand what's really going on. And there's a lot of that. We see the debunking community explain what's going on, what they're seeing. So they're educating the public. So I would say get together more. Like invite skeptics out, invite debunkers out, invite me out. Like I keep trying to get myself to tag along with groups going out, but so many refuse to. And I think if you start working together, everyone's going to benefit because the ghost hunters are going to stop making mistakes. So many mistakes that we pick out. And the better that the ghost hunters do, the less the debunkers have to debunk.
Careful, hon.
And I think that's a big deal. That's a fun background you got there.
It sure is. It sure is. That's outstanding.
So yeah,
I go a little closer.
I think that's the way to go. I think both communities need to start working together and talking more. And I mean, because sometimes like we hear Seg or Beardo say like some channel that they featured reaches out and they're like, hey, cool video, you know, you're right, I get it. And that's what we need. You know, that's what we need more. We need working together, not working against each other. And I mean, I make it available anytime a group wants help or they're looking for, hey, come on out and help us. I want to help. You know, I want to help improve the quality of your work. That's part of my job. So, I think that's my answer, and I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely.
I love the mask.
Have a good one, man.
That's awesome.
Appreciate you, Tashi.
Thank you, buddy.
I gotta find that.
I got you. Right.
Don't take the mask off yet. That was great.
Oh man. And sorry about that. All right, now I'm gonna bring Rob onto the stage. Rob, how are you? I think there's a.
I'm not bad, you.
Oh, good. Good.
I'm starstruck here a wee bit.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. I love the guitar in the background. Different guitar in the background this week. Is that a 335?
Every time I come on, I'm going to change it every week. So
yeah,
that's cool.
I love it.
Yeah.
What do you got for us, Rob?
My question for Kenny is if he could have one last meal with 3 people and dead or alive, who would it be and what would the meal be?
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that. I usually get asked, like, who's the last, if someone you want to talk to, like, who is it? But 3 people. All right. So,
apart from your family, obviously.
Houdini would definitely be number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Harry Houdini. I would love to talk to him. I would love to talk to Einstein. I think that would be cool. And this is gonna sound weird, and I'll explain it. A woman named Rose Mackenberg, and Rose was Harry Houdini's chief investigator. She did so much undercover work, and she is like an unsung hero because every time Houdini would do a show about psychics to expose what psychics did, it was because Rose Mackenberg went ahead of his show, sat with the psychics, learned what they were doing, and then reported back to Harry Houdini. So basically, like 10 days to 2 weeks before a show, she would go out, she would go in disguise and come up with a story, visit the local medium, sit in for the seance, and she was taught by Houdini, so she knew all these tricks. And she would sit down, learn it all, write down notes, take it back to Houdini, and Houdini would do the exact same show when he came to town and show everyone, like, this is how they're doing it. Don't spend money on this. So I would love to talk to her for that reason, to learn like what techniques she did and how she got some information, but also because for the last maybe decade, I have been trying desperately to find her grave. She is lost, unfortunately. She died alone, and she doesn't have a grave. And I've been finding records when I can. I'm waiting for the state of New York to get back to me about her will, which hopefully
she's got no headstone or nothing like that.
No headstone, no grave. Her death certificate listed 2 cemeteries. One was listed and then crossed out, and another one was listed. I contacted both. I went through all the records. I went through the funeral home that had the records, and I keep hitting dead ends. So I've been constantly searching for her just to pay my respects. You know, like, this is a woman that really inspired me, and I would love to be able to sit down and talk. And at least one question is, like, what happened to you? Where did you go? And then for the meal, I would definitely stay within my Philadelphia roots here and say a Philadelphia cheesesteak with steak fries, cheese fries. Oh my gosh. And a chocolate milkshake.
Man,
I'm done.
I'm starving right now. So.
There you go, man. Rababa. Thank you. Is it okay that I do that? Rababa.
Yeah, it's cool. It's funny, man.
That's
Love your
awesome.
show, man. So good.
I love it. Thank you for the question. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's good to finally see you face to face.
I can, yeah. I've been waiting for this for ages and ages. Been excited all day. So.
That's awesome.
Nice.
All right, man. Cool. Very cool.
Cheers.
Cool, brother. Have a good one, Rob. Appreciate you.
Take it
Yeah,
easy,
Tasty, have a good one too. What you're up to?
Awesome.
All right, my friend. I'll see you next time. Got a question in the chat. I do have another caller waiting, but I'm going to ask because I'm trying to do it in order that they were put out. Brian Reinhart asks, isn't there a computer program to scan EVPs and determines the words? I've seen this program used to compare voice signatures in an FBI case. Do you know anything about that?
So I've heard of software that might go through and be able to transcribe what is heard. I don't know how accurate it is or how reliable it is. Certainly not anything that's commercially available would be something that we could get our hands on and test. I would definitely like to test it first, because even we use AI here to transcribe podcasts, and or actually to go the other way, turning our articles for Skeptical Inquirer magazine into podcasts. So we use AI for that, and that still gets some words wrong.
Right.
And that's reading, much less when we use it to transcribe from like a lecture, which is, directly from the microphone of the person that's lecturing. It still gets words wrong. So I wouldn't trust it completely. It's good. Even when we see our closed captioning on TV, sometimes that screws it up too. Excuse me. But it's an interesting concept, but we're also not using clear speech.
Yeah.
In most cases, you're using fragments of speech. You're using static. You're getting background noises. There's so many things that could go wrong with that. In different cases, you're using a cycling radio stations. So you're getting bits and pieces. And again, it can be just as fallible as us, because if you're only getting part of a word, you're not going to hear everything. And I'm going to use juggernaut because I just watched Deadpool and Wolverine. So if the word juggernaut is used on the radio, but as it's sweeping, you only get nut. That's the word you're getting. You're not going to get the whole word. So I don't think it would be reliable in that instance either. So good question though. Good question.
Yeah. Very good question. Wisdom, I'm going to bring him on the stage. How are you doing, Wisdom?
What's up, buddy? Thanks for the song.
Yeah, I love that song. I kind of think it was the end part of it was more like the beginning of the show.
Right. I think I'm going to retool that and use it that way. Put it in
but
there.
I feel so bad stepping on Sarah's song, because Sarah did such an awesome song. I love that song too. That's my favorite. That's that get you pumped up right at the beginning of your live freaking thing. Heck yeah.
Dude, you don't see the behind the scenes. When I'm sitting here and that's playing, I'm like playing the drums. When I can't play, I'm rocking out. And my wife's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? What's up? What do you got?
I was going to ask you about something about spirit energy, just to see if you drink, but cheers.
Cheers.
And actually, I really want to know where you came up with that information about Houdini's assistant, because that whole story had me intrigued. You talking about his assistant who went ahead of him and stuff. Because I did a report on Houdini when I was in high school. I loved Harry Houdini, everything that he did, and I don't recall that at all. So I was just wondering where I could read that.
Hold on, let me check real quick. Let's see.
Had some hair tickling my face here. I had to readjust my headphones and use it as a hairband.
Get you a Matt Benton haircut.
Oh, man. No, thank you. I had it before, and I just, I don't feel comfortable with short hair anymore.
Here you go. That's a book that was published quite a few years ago.
Girl Detective. I'm definitely going to look that up.
It's a really good compilation of newspaper articles, and she wrote a series of articles that were sent out from the Associated Press and went to some major. I used to have a poster here of one of her big main article, and now it's down in the museum that we have. But basically, she talked about her adventures. She had several pictures of her undercover in different outfits that she would wear, from like a news reporter to a housewife to a woman in mourning over like a loss of a husband. And it talked about some of the tricks that she came across most often. But this book was really instrumental in that. She also testified in Congress where there was a trial going on against mediumship. And there was a law back in Houdini's time, right before he died, I think 1920 or 21, where they were trying to outlaw mediums and all the psychic stuff. So she was instrumental. I have a transcript of her when she was on the stand and talking, answering questions about her activities and how she went undercover. So this is, definitely a good book. Houdini's Girl Detective, The Real Life Ghost-Busting Adventures of Rose Mackenberg, compiled and introduced by Tony Wolf. So if you send me a message through like Facebook or email me at kbiddle, Biddle, at centerforinquiry.org, I will send you a picture of this and a link where you can find it. Because it's thin. It's not big at all, but you get a better sense of her life and what she did. And honestly, Houdini would not have been half as good at what he did if she wasn't part of his team. So
yeah,
and I'm with you. I love Houdini. I have tons of books up there about Houdini, like above where you can see. But I think he's great. I have a poster hanging. I actually have two posters here. I'm going to see if I can show you on the wall. There you go.
Those are cool.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
So yeah, big fan of Houdini. I like the shirt too. Nice shirt.
Hey, thanks.
Minions. That's my dog's name, Minion.
That's a name for a dog.
Cool.
He's
if I ever got a dog again, I was going to name it Moist.
All right, Wisdom, I hope that answered your question. I appreciate you coming on, man, very much. And
thanks, buddy.
Encourage anybody else to come up and ask questions. We've got a little bit of time left here. I'm going to try and get through these as best as we can. Brian Reinhardt asks, do Catholics claim more hauntings than, say, Jewish people or Muslims or Buddhists?
Wow. To be honest, that is not a question I can answer.
Yeah.
I don't know. That would have to... That's an interesting thing. I'm going to... Which religion claims the most hauntings or claims of hauntings? That's something that might be worth looking into.
Yeah.
To see if there was a study done or a comparison, maybe a meta study on that. But I don't have any information on that, so I apologize. I can't answer your question.
Well, the best answer is I don't know. If you don't know,
exactly.
Answer, yeah.
That's it. If you do not know, then in fact you don't know. So,
right.
and
to know what you don't know is good. Yeah. I want to say, if anybody's asked questions in the chat that I haven't answered, go ahead and ask it again. Put Q in front of the question. That way it helps me identify it. I stole that straight from Kenny Biddle himself.
That's okay.
Here's a question for you.
Sure.
Original trilogy, prequel trilogy, or the abominable latest trilogy?
Come on now. Come on. Original all the way.
Yeah.
Original recipe, baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Got it.
Now, special edition or untouched?
Untouched.
Yes.
Fuck that special edition shit. I do not. No.
Yeah. They've changed Jabba the Hutt so many times. I think in the newest one, they made it to where he's like this projection, right? Because like, you know, where like in episode 4, where Han walks around Jabba, they added that in the special edition. And then they retouched him up later in a later version of the special edition. And now he's not even there. It's this projected image, like a droid is projecting Jabba, because it doesn't make sense that Jabba would even be there and all this. Right. And it's like, just leave it alone.
You know, I don't like when they do it the wrong way. They go the wrong direction with it. It's you have the original, like, make everything match that.
Yes.
Don't go back to the original and make it match the newer ones or the redone ones. That's not how you're going to take the people right out of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I mean, you make your money by getting people into the story. When you take them out, they're not going to come back.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like the whole idea of, because, you know, there was that whole mystique of who Vader is originally, right? And then, like when they did the prequels, then they went back and changed the dialogue between Vader and the Emperor, and it's very drastic, because originally he just says the son of Skywalker must not become a Jedi,
right.
And then they changed all of that. Like, I just watched it the other day on Disney Plus, and it was this long thing, and I'm like, I don't like this at all. I really hate this, you know? And the fact that you can't, if you want to get the original trilogy, you have to find people who have specialized in despecializing the versions, which those are phenomenal. I actually have a couple copies. If you want, I can get you that, to where you have the original trilogy in 1080p as it was from the 70s and the early 80s. So if you want that, I can make that happen for you.
I have the original VHS release of it. I have two versions of each. So I have the original version that was still it was widescreen, but then I think it was the special edition that they released in widescreen and 4:3 aspect, which I haven't taken out of the box, because I was like, I hated the additions on it, and stupid little trinkets and silly effects. Just leave it alone, man.
Yes, exactly. Brian Reinhardt is also asking, the famous ghost girl pic of the ghost girl sitting on a bench in a cemetery was in every book. Has it been debunked? Do you know what picture he's talking about?
Oh, that is that is at a cemetery. It's not a bench. She's sitting on it's like a box in a cemetery, and it's a pretty famous one. There's a cool side story with that. It hasn't been formally debunked, but just looking at the image itself, it is a solid person. They're wearing the same clothing as the day. It's not any kind of vintage clothing or Victorian garb. She's wearing baggy jean pants and a like an 80s style top. So, and then she has the bushy hair, the like hairspray kind of hair going on. So I think it's just an overexposure. It's very hard to see the original image, because most of the time you just see the cropped version. Right. And it's usually just on her, or sometimes it has one tree in there, but there's a much larger version that sees it. And I mean, it's usually overexposed what we see, the image that we see. But when you see the original, it's kind of clear to me that it's just somebody sitting on this box. They were just sat down for a little bit. And then when I say box, it's not. It's part of the stone, the headstone there. So it's not anything that I would consider a ghost. I don't, not at all. As far as I know, that cemetery is like, it's hard to get to now. It's not just a direct path. It's overgrown. What is that? Now you got me thinking, like, now I got a famous cemetery ghost.
He's on a mission.
Union Cemetery, is that it? Resurrection Mary? No, that's not it. Bachelor's Grove, that's it. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. That's where the picture was taken. But yeah, there's I don't think there's anything extraordinary about it. It just looks like an overexposed, because if you look in the picture itself, you'll see like there's very, very bright areas, which are the overexposed parts.
Right.
And that's because it was very sunny. And I think they were exposing for the shaded tree that was right in front of them. So when you do that, you automatically overexpose all the very bright areas in the background.
Right.
Which gives it that weird look to it. So good question.
Very good. Very good. Wayne Dawson asks, what's harder to debunk, photos or videos?
Ooh. I think it's kind of even. It really depends, because it depends on what's being presented, like what they're saying is in the photo, because sometimes it's just not there. Sometimes they're like, oh, you see the ghost right there? And I'm like, no, I don't see anything, dude.
Yeah.
But video can help a little bit, because you get, if it's on a tripod, it's not as helpful. If it's handheld, sometimes it's a little bit helpful because you get a different angle. The camera's moving, so you can get to see something from a different angle. And if it's an optical illusion where things need to line up, you'll see it disappear, and it's like, oh, all right. And it only gets back when you line it up correctly. Also, it lets me explore it some more. I can look at frame by frame to see if there's any changes, if there's masking going on, if they're hiding something behind some digital effects or digital masking, if they're using green screen or green suit. Pictures, I mean, they have their own problems, but they also, I know cameras so well that I can usually recreate something pretty quick. Again, unless it's an optical illusion, and then you're kind of stuck because you usually only have one picture. And it's that still frame, and then even if they move and take another picture, it's a still frame. But in that case, you can compare the two and usually look for shadows, and if anything moved more than you think it should. Like if something looks like it's in the background, but it moves a lot more than it does, you can tell, oh, it's in the foreground. It's much closer to the camera than I thought. So both have their pros and cons, and it really depends on what's being claimed, what was captured, and if they're willing to give you original footage too.
Yeah.
Sometimes they give you cropped footage. I hate that. Because you can usually tell the aspect ratio is wrong. It's off. And that's my first question. Like, is this cropped? Yes. Why? Because my first question is you like that first question is, if you want me to look at it, I'm happy to, but send me the original untouched, unedited version. And then when they send me a cropped version, then it's like, well, that's strike one.
Yeah.
You know, because now you're trying to hide something. Give me what I asked for, and I'll help you out. It's a little hard. I mean, you can still do that with video. So, but it's usually much harder, because when you start expanding the video, then it pixelates more. It becomes a little distorted depending on what they did, how they used it. So yeah, there's pros and cons. My answer is yes. I'll go with that. Yes. Both
Fair
can
enough.
be difficult.
This is a fun one. For Alien is asking, what are your thoughts on spontaneous human combustion? For me, the idea of that terrifies me more than a ghost could.
So, I mean, that has been something that has been thoroughly debunked by science. And it's something, if you look up the candlewick theory, it explains it really well. In most cases, you have someone that's a smoker that it happened to, or that they were very close to an open flame. The person usually falls asleep or passes out, or has a heart attack. there's something that causes them to lose consciousness and they cannot wake up. So that's usually because they have a heart attack or they pass out because they're drunk or high or something like that. And our body has a lot of fat content. Some of us more than others. So if you have some clothes on, like a blanket or something like that, or your chair is made from a flammable material, it will catch fire. And as you burn and don't wake up, you are pretty much a candle. Your fat actually feeds the flame. And instead of the environment burning as much as you would think, like the entire house going up in flame, then you burn like a candle. And it's bad, but you'll see in some pictures, when you look at some of these pictures, there's still a body part left. There's like the end of the leg or end of an arm that's still in the picture. If you look at the entire scene of the incident, you'll see that the fire is localized. It doesn't go all over the place. There was one famous picture of a person that was in a chair. It was like a recliner chair, and there was a dresser next to them and a television set on top of the dresser. And the fire was very localized. The TV had melted, but the dresser did not burn. It didn't catch on fire. It didn't burn, which you would expect. If it caught fire, you would expect it. But it didn't actually catch fire. It was heat damage from the person / candle that was passed out. I think that person actually, they determined that he probably had a heart attack because of medication that he was on and history that he had. He probably had a heart attack, died in the chair while holding a cigarette. And the cigarette ignited his clothing, and then he started slowly burning, which sucks. Because I was the same way as you. I read those books growing up, and I was like, oh my, you mean I can just burst into flame at any moment? What the hell? And especially growing up in a Catholic school, it's like, why? Why, God? Why? Why would you do that to us? I hope I answered your question.
We've got a few more, and then we're gonna wrap it up. We've got one from Teshi, the guy, the lion guy earlier, the tiger. Hey Kenny, have you ever had evidence that you have not been able to debunk?
Yeah, there has been. I think there's always going to be, and I wouldn't call it evidence. I would call it data, because evidence is usually it's data that you have shown that supports a certain claim. So I would say I've been shown like photographs or videos, and once in a while I don't know what it is, and it'll sit there. And most of the time, my OCD, my self-diagnosed OCD, will kick in, and I'm obsessed with it. And that's something my wife can verify, because like once I get into my head, like I don't know how that's done. I gotta figure this fuck out. I gotta figure this out, and I will be obsessed for days until I figure it out, or something else catches my attention and I'll lose interest.
Right.
But there's always going to be something, and there has been plenty where there's a photo and I honestly don't know. I don't know what this is. There's a video. I don't know what this is. A lot of time with audio, alleged EVPs. Somebody plays a sound for me, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. Or it's supposed to say something. I don't hear a voice. I hear a noise, or I don't hear a word, or they tell me something. They tell me what it's supposed to say, and I'm like, I don't hear that. So there's always going to be something like that where I can't explain it, and that's fine. I mean, because the number one cause of that is a lack of information. They can't supply enough information to figure it out. And I mean, sometimes we can't go to the location. Maybe it's gone. Maybe, that it was torn down years ago, or this story came from like 30 years ago, or from a different state, and it's too far. We can't just go there. Maybe there was renovations. Maybe they don't remember everything, because that's always the case. Especially when it's a couple days or weeks later, you don't remember every detail. So if we don't have all the information, we might not be able to figure out the mystery, and that's cool. That's, if it's something that's really interesting, I'll print out all the information, like the email, or I'll take notes and I'll put it in a file, and it goes into my file cabinet, because I actually do still have file cabinets over here, and it'll sit there until new information comes to light. And that may happen in a few days. It may never happen. But, you know, once in a while I go through the files and just look and say, all right, what haven't I touched on? Is there any new information? And I'll look it up. But yeah. So, yeah, to answer your question, yes, there's definitely been plenty of times when I could not figure it out.
Right. Good. I like that. Wisdom asks, is there a reason why all ghosts look white? Like, not the race, but actual color?
Because we grew up with black and white television. I would probably say, and this is speculation. I want to make it clear. This is speculation on my part. I would say that when people have some kind of sighting, when they think they see a ghost, or what may look like a ghost or something like that, it's usually not in the best lighting conditions. All right. So it's not like a well-lit room like I'm in now, where there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a dozen light bulbs in here. It's usually dark. It's usually like, or just very low light. And for the most part, yeah, you're going to see something, especially at a distance, it's going to appear light colored. Even a shadow, you got to think like, if it's not a shadowy figure, which is going to be darker than the background, because that's why it stands out, and that's why it's called a shadow. It's going to be something that's lighter than the background, and if it's dark, you're not going to see color as well, and it's going to appear white or light gray, ish. And I think that's probably the basis for most our common or more modern take on why ghosts are always white. And plus, I mean, if you have like the Lady in White, that's such a popular ghost story.
Yeah.
And I mean, it goes back to the idea of a female in night clothes, you know, her nightgown or something like that. And when you're talking like the 40s or 50s or even Victorian age, like that kind of stuff was white. So it's not like people are just saying, oh, every ghost is white because ghosts are white. It's because what they're seeing or what they're mistaking, or maybe if they're seeing someone like walking through a garden or a park or something, they are wearing white. So that's my best guess. Otherwise, I don't know. It probably just shows up in the dark better.
Yeah. I've got 2 more questions here, and then I'm going to close it. I'll put me backstage because I got some questions for you after the show is over. Just make sure we get some stuff straightened out, and then I'm just going to have to say goodbye. And then I've got the after party after this live stream here too, so be sure to come back to that. Rob Linklater asks, is the Skeptical Bar open this Friday, and do you have any guests coming on?
The Skeptical Help Bar is open this Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and we do not have a guest. As far as I know, it might change if somebody pops into my head and I decide to ask them and they say yes. But I think I'm going with an open mic night this Friday, so it'll be Q&A and just having fun. We got stuff to talk about. I mean, we had this good show last week when my editor Ben Rafford and we went to Lilydale, and we had some fun at that area.
Nice
spiritualist area. So yeah, there you go.
Good deal. Juniper asks, do you believe in outer body experiences, and do you think this could explain some ghosts?
I do not maintain a belief in that. I think there is some explanations, and I think they're very deep scientific explanations of what people might be experiencing in those times. I don't think people can I mean, when we're talking out of body and near death experiences, they're 2 different concepts, but I think the out of body ones are going down the path of this is voluntary, that people are consciously going out of their body in a spiritual form. The whole thing with like the silver cord, you know, that attaches you to your physical body kind of thing, going out there. No, I don't think that's possible. But if somebody claims that they can do it, that's certainly testable. I think that's probably one of the easiest testable claims that we could do. because we could have them, fall asleep and then put stuff up high and let them, float up and tell us what it is. Mm-hmm. So I'd be open to that. I'd be happy to take a test like that or develop a test and run it. Just let me know if anyone can actually do that.
Fair enough. All right, very good. Well, I appreciate you, Kenny, for coming out here. And I'd love to have you back on sometime, because it seems with you there's no shortage of questions. And there are plenty of questions that I skipped over tonight just to move things along. So I'd love to have you back on sometime. And,
Absolutely.
Again, I appreciate you very much. Right on. Well, everybody say goodbye to Kenny. And I'm going to switch over to this scene right now. Again, for those of you who would like to, the after party will start momentarily after this stream ends. And I look forward to seeing there. We're just going to do a just chatting stream tonight. I appreciate everybody for the call-ins and for all the questions. And this is Into the Night. And I am Jimmy Mitchell. Thank you, everybody, for joining.